But while they are squabbling, of course, Tristan Ovenden up front is getting away.
They say that perfection doesn't exist in this game. Most players just don't have it in them. But those who dare to seek it might catch excellence. And that sounds perfect to me. So, I'm done playing. Let's drive.
Well, hello everyone and welcome to the ROKiT British F4 Esports Championship for race meeting number 2. We head to Cheshire. This is the Base Performance Simulators round number 2 at Oulton Park. My name is Coronary Medic, and as ever, I am joined by the wonderful Lewis McGlade here on the commentary for the races that we'll have today. We had a fantastic opening beating at Donington Park not too long ago, but now we're getting the season in full swing, heading to Oulton Park for the second round of the championship. Lewis, we had a lot of fun, and I mean a lot of fun, at Donington Park. It was a great display of action that we saw out there in these IRO4 cars, but now we changed tack a little bit. We head to Oulton Park, which might be a bit of a different beast.
Yeah, it's a much tighter circuit. In these kind of cars, it'll be almost more a traditional style circuit. It's less about the slipstream trains like what we see at Donington Park, where 6 was the magic number. That'll be less so today. I'm thinking we're going to see a lot more one-on-one combat, a lot more driver skill to kind of separate them from the train. It's going to be a very different style of evening, but I think we're still in for the same level of action.
Yeah, I think we are as well. And of course, thank you very much for Base Performance Simulators for becoming the title sponsor of this second round of competition. We have other sponsors as well. SimuCube, ROKiT, of course, the title sponsor of the series. We have VRRC as well, the Virtual Reality Racing Club, WSR, World Sim Racing, and of course that's going to be it, at least for now. But this is we had a fantastic time at Donington Park. I'm certainly looking forward to what's going to go on here at Oulton Park. And well, at least from my perspective, there's going to be a couple of storylines that are going to be heading into this one. Of course, we saw a fantastic performance from Munster Rugby Gaming actually in that first round. They currently top the order in terms of the team standings here for the moment. But Donington Park was a bit of a weird one for a good couple of drivers. So the field did shake itself up a little bit.
Yeah, there's a few drivers that we kind of saw at the front for various moments, and then, of course, a bit of drama, like what we saw for McAuliffe, for Deegan Fairclough, of course, even for Ted Bradbury with that odd moment coming out of the final chicane before having to come into the pit lane to serve a penalty in that first race of the championship. We're going to see those kind of dramas here today. Probably. I think we'll see our fair share of drama. Track limits are going to be a big thing, a big talking point around here, which is where obviously we saw some of those issues coming into it at the last round, with them cutting over the final chicane and then getting a penalty late on. I do genuinely think we might see the same levels of drama around here. Anyone who's driven Oulton Park in iRacing will know that Oulton has been in turn 1, absolute nightmare for it. Cascades, the exit of there is absolutely ridiculous when it comes to keeping in with track limits. It is going to be a very testing night and a big one for the championship.
It really is. But let's have a look at what will be happening here today and, well, recap the format. If you weren't able to tune in the beginning part of this season, each round will have 2 30-minute races. The grid for race 1 will be decided by a lone qualifying session. If you're unfamiliar with sim racing, that means the cars are going to be out there all on their lonesome in qualifying, won't be able to affect each other in terms of their lap times by getting in the way or giving the draft. The grid for race 2 will be determined by a reverse grid, and that will be a random reverse grid based on the results of race number 1 as well. The random numbers will be between 5th place and 10th place, so anyone within that range might be able to get themselves pole position for race number 2 if they finish in around that range in race 1. The team scoring system looks like at the very bottom of the graphic. P1 25 points, P2 18, P3 15 points, and points extend all the way down to 10th place here in this series, and there's going to be a huge amount of competition for P10s. At least it has been the experience in the one round that we've already done this season. Let's have a look at the prizes, however. It's primarily a team's championship, you have to argue, with £2,500 going the way of the first place team here. Second place gets themselves 1,500, third place gets 1,000. There is also a driver's championship as well to be concerned about, 500, 300, 200 to the first, second, and third, respectively, in that particular championship. And of course, you got extra team prizes as well. The winning team gets 2 full days in the base performance simulator official Formula 4 simulator in Branbury, which is going to be an absolutely fantastic experience for everyone involved. Second place team actually get themselves a full day instead of 2 full days that the winning team get as well. So again, fantastic for them. And for the third place team, it's going to be 6 hours of simulator time at the Virtual Reality Racing Club at Silverstone. So lots of great prizes on offer here, Lewis.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, couldn't be done without all the sponsors and stuff back in the series. There's so much up for grabs for the teams, for the drivers. As I said though, it is more of a teams championship. Drivers wise, so you do get a little bit of money, also a little bit of coaching as well post season. But still, the focus is on working as a team and going for the big prize, trying to grab that $2,500, and of course the 2 full days in the base performance simulator. It's a tough time. It's not a long season. It is just 6 rounds from start to finish. It's very tricky for any of the teams to come up consistently over such a short season.
Yeah, and you can see, well, briefly on the right-hand side there, the winning driver gets themselves a Sim 5 simulator as well, so that's fantastic stuff. Here are the teams that are taking part here today. We've got, of course, the 2 Apex Racing affiliated teams, the Apex Racing Team, the Apex Racing Academy, Berryman, Fluke, McEwen, this land is all involved in that one. They're fighting it up for the top team spot at the moment with Munster Rugby Gaming, who currently occupy the top spot. They've had a bit of a driver change here as well. Moreno Sarica getting behind the wheel of one of those Munster Rugby Gaming cars. Josh Ladd's continuing to take part in that number 11 machine as well. But a lot of teams here might not necessarily be looking for championships at the end of the season, but to be able to maybe score points in a couple of races, try and get themselves at least in top 5 in terms of teams.
Yeah, absolutely. There are plenty of teams that are just out there, honestly, for the experience to be out on a grid like this. A couple of driver changes, though. Prismatic Motorsports, just the one driver in Mira Schmidt this round. Iredale, unfortunately, not able to make this one. Fordzilla with a bit of a switch. Joss Poulain jumps in. Of course, Emery Chihan, who was originally in that car. I mean, they started out all right. Actually, they were in decent positions for the third race, but unfortunately second race, couldn't take any advantage from them. So Josh Poulain jumping into the main team Fordzilla car alongside Will McIntyre. A couple of other changes in there, but nothing too major. Just the odd swap here and there, which we kind of expect to have a champion of this.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, it's great to see such a variety in liveries as well. I always like to talk about sim racing liveries and how sometimes they're better than the real world ones, if I'm being completely honest. Here's a new graphic for you to look at, though. It's going to be the penalty structure here that we're going to be using over the course of this championship. If it's, well, it's self-explanatory, really. If anything's deemed a racing incident, well, it's logged as a racing incident. But if you cause 1 to 10 positions lost, then it's your fault. So it's 1 point, you're causing 11 positions lost, 2 points, and so on and so forth. So that's just a little bit of transparency, a little bit of clarification of how the penalties are going to work here. The penalties after race 1 apply as so. Emery Chion has 2 penalty points, basically. Ryan Gohel 2 penalty points as well. So that's the situation there. For every 3 license points is what they're called here in this series, a driver receives an exclusion from qualifying the following round for every 3 license points that they get. So they'll have to start at the back of the grid. So that's the situation there, Lewis.
Yeah, which some tracks, honestly, that might not be the worst. It's not going to be a good thing. It's never going to be a good thing. But for some tracks, that won't actually be super bad because these cars are so easy to pass in, essentially. Somewhere like Donington Park or somewhere like Silverstone, this is fine. For somewhere like Oulton Park, thankfully no one has breached that, but somewhere like Oulton Park or potentially the next round at Knock Hill, that is going to cause problems. If you have a back of the grid drop, essentially what it is, if you're excluded through qualifying, if you're not able to take part through that qualifying session, you have to start from the back in the first race at Knock Hill. You are asking for a bad round. It is such a tight circuit, same as what we'd kind of expect from here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we can move on now and have a look at the point standings. These are the team standings. As I've mentioned just a couple of minutes ago, it is Munster Rugby Gaming that lead the way in that one, but by only 2 points. Back to Apex Racing Academy. So it's the Academy car of the Apex Racing outfit that actually is ahead at this stage of their quote-unquote main team, the Apex Racing team in P3. Team Fordzilla on 9 points. They're on 4th with JHR Development in P5. Prismatic Motorsports P6. Team Fordzilla Hybrid P7. That's the last team that has scored points over the course of this season so far. Everyone else yet to get themselves off the mark here. We're having a look at the Drivers' Championship then. Josh Ladd leads with 37 points, back from Stanley Deslandis in P2. Luke McCoon P3 with Jamie Fluke P4, Alex Spetz in P5, Peter Berryman P6, James Armstrong, Mira Schmidt, Olia Stepanov, Emre Chion and Dion Gauda round out the drivers that have scored points in round number 1, and everyone else further back unfortunately have yet to get themselves on the board and get themselves a top 10 finish required to get some points. So we are here at Oulton Park Island, but we're not too far away. Well, after 2 weeks break, and then we'll get ourselves our third round going at Knock Hill. Then we'll head to Snetterton, then we'll head to Silverstone, and then for our finale, like any good British series here, Lewis, it has its finale at Brands Hatch.
Yeah, which is just an absolute classic circuit, always to round out a season. But, we've got a long way before we get there and plenty of great races to see. We do also have a little look around this fantastic Oulton Park Island layout. It really is one of the absolute best circuits in the country. Maybe it's a little bit tight, maybe it's a little bit twisty, maybe it's a little bit testy, but for the drivers, it is an awful lot of fun when you're doing it by yourself. It's the island layout, so we'll come down to that hairpin that's at the bottom of shot before we'll return up towards Hislops, Knickerbrook, and then go up Clay Hill and stuff. That's probably the primary overtaking opportunity around the circuit. We'll take a little look then as we come through Lodge Corner and then up Deer Leap. You can see that's quite a steep climb. Certainly is a lot steeper than it looks within the simulator. It's something that you have to keep worried about with the car, because it will push over to the right-hand side through Old Hall. Listen to the commitment through here. Absolutely pinned on the throttle on the exit. Not to run out too wide. That's where you'll get one of those off tracks. Come down the avenue through Dentons and into Cascades. Pull it back over to the left-hand side and do not run, not even 2 wheels out onto that tarmac and little gravel runoff, because it will ping you again for track limits. Heavy braking zone as we run down Lakeside into the island hairpin. You need a kind of late apex here, not to wash out too far wide. You will lose grip by running out onto that grass. It could spin you around. We'll see someone come and fall foul of that. Over Hilltop, down to Hislops. Great overtaking opportunity, this one, but you've got to watch out for the tyre barriers. You need to get as close as possible, though, as we go through the right, through the left, and then build yourself up for Knickerbrook. It's such a tricky corner. It doesn't look it, but you're balancing with the rear constantly through there as we rise up Clay Hill towards Druids Corner. This is one of my favourite corners in the entire country. Double apex right-hander, full commitment, rear trying to step out every single time. Bit of a rise on the exit as well, just to add to the difficulty. And then down to the final corner at Lodge, as it's a tricky braking zone, this one. Some like to make a big dive, but it's quite a high-speed corner comparatively to what you'd expect it, despite it being a 90-degree right-hander, and then back up Deer Leap over to the line. It's a short lap at just 3.6 kilometers, but it is one that's just so exciting.
Yeah, it is one of those incredible British circuits, and I'm certainly a fan. And if you ask one of our colleagues here at RaceSpotTV, Mr. Paul Smith, then he says it's the best track ever. But we see Peter Berryman in the number 50 Apex Racing team car getting on with his qualifying here at the moment. Drivers will have 10 minutes to set themselves a potential for attempts at a fast lap here. If they go over that many attempts, well, none of their laps after that will count. But Peter Berryman across the line, about 2/10 off of his personal best that time around. He's got 2 more laps in hand, though. He's on his 3rd fast lap, is Peter Berryman. So plenty of opportunities to get himself a little bit further up the order. Well, the only way he's going to get further up the order is getting himself up into provisional pole position at the moment for Peter Berryman. Here's Josh Ladd, who's your Drivers' Championship leader at the moment in the number 11. He's currently all the way, well, he's down in 4th place here for the moment. 2nd row on the starting grid, at least at the moment for Josh Ladd. Wouldn't be too terrible of a starting position, but we're right on board with him as he gets into the second half of his lap. And just look at how close he gets through to the tyre barriers on the inside of the apexes at his lots. And unfortunately here in iRacing, Lewis, those tyre barriers are, well, they're more like brick walls.
Yep, they don't move. What they will move is the suspension off of your car if you're not careful. So you've got to give them a fair amount of respect, but it's, again, you can't leave too much room on the table, certainly not in this qualifying session. Josh Ladd comes through the final corner and up towards the line. He didn't qualify well last time, only in 8th position, but he did take that first victory of the season.
Indeed he did, and 1:18.120 on that lap does improve and is enough to get himself up into provisional pole position, but there are still so many fast drivers that have laps in hand at the moment, Josh Ladd included, and there we go, Jamie Fluke across the line to get himself up into provisional pole position with a 1:18.067. He's Deacon Fairclough, had at least a bit of decent running at Donington Park. It's just the luck didn't seem to really go his way. Let's see if there's any change of fortune here, and I think I've jinxed him a little bit. A big lock up there into the hairpin.
Yeah, that was just in a touch too deep, but you can see he's looking fairly calm behind the wheel. 5th place in the qualifying session at the moment, in a decent spot potentially to go off something. Here's Moreno Sirica, though. You can kind of see, hang on, wait, wasn't this Alex Spetz? Wasn't that a pole sitter last time? No, Moreno Sirica jumping in for Spetz, so will be the teammate of Josh Ladd through this round. Great driver to have replaced, at least for a one-off occasion. Currently up in 3rd position, so straight on the money when it comes to the pace, but Jamie Fluke, of course, was denied victory in the final race of Donington Park. Currently sat on that provisional pole, looking to at least steal one today.
By his teammate as well, but, well, by his sister car, shall we say, not his direct teammate. But from Moreno Sirica, he's heading his way up and across the line now, a 1:18.281. Again, not an improvement for him compared to his personal best, and he'll actually bring that car to a stop. And won't be heading back out there anytime soon. So it seems like the qualifying session is done for the number 69. But we're seeing Caruana here heading his way in towards Hislops in the number 26, starting P9 here for the moment. And I'm just having a look to see how many laps in hand he has. Well, this is going to be his final attempt here, Lewis. One more chance to get at least a little bit further inside that top 10.
Yeah, 9th position still decent. Did not have a good first round of the championship, but still you'd want to start a few more up from that. You've got Deslandis directly behind. You've got Poulain. You've got Armstrong, who was so good at making up some positions in the early stages of the Donington Park round. So coming up towards that final corner, Caruana looking to improve. A little bit of oversteer. You see that off of the corner. That's going to cost him just a touch of time, maybe about half a tenth or two as he runs towards it. What's the time going to be? It's an 18.2, so that is an improvement. We'll move him up just to 7th. But still, any improvements, an improvement. So, yeah, we'll take those.
William McIntyre coming towards the end of his lap as well here with 2 minutes left to go. This is his final attempt to put that Team Fordzilla car a little bit further up the grid than 15th place here for the moment. Drive to the line, a 1:18.705 to beat in terms of personal best, and doesn't quite do it, heading his way across the line. So McIntyre will start in P15 here unless anyone else decides to shake up the order and put him a little bit further down. It looks like everyone's pretty much... well, we have Carl Chase coming across the line. He sets himself a lap that's not entirely competitive. It seems like the qualifying session largely done. We're just waiting for that number 11 to head its way across the line. Joshua Ladd, has he been able to improve? No, he hasn't. That lap wasn't even valid.
No, which, to be fair, there you go. This lap's obviously, I mean, he's done the session essentially, but yeah, that lap would also be invalid. This is what I'm talking about. The run through turn 1 at Oulton, you run out that far wide, boom, that is going to be a ping. That is close. I'm not even joking. Everyone's like, well, surely you have to get all 4 wheels off the line to. No. Cascades, it's a horrible corner because even two-wheeled, if you put over half your car over that white line, that is a track cut, and it's what makes qualifying around here so frustrating. Trust me, I have had my fair share of trying to qualify this car around this circuit. It is a stressful affair.
Very difficult indeed, and well, it's an absolutely monumental challenge at times. Sometimes the tracks on iRacing can be a little bit stricter with the track limits than at some others, but that is certainly a discussion for another time as we wait for this session clock to run down here at this point. It will be, because no one else is out there on an active qualifying lap, Jamie Fluke on pole position here for race number 1 with Josh Ladd on the front row with him as well. That one might be particularly spicy, especially given that Fluke is a bit surrounded by Monster Rugby gaming cars. So with that all said and done, and with the qualifying session drawing itself to a close, we can officially bring you through the starting grid here for race number 1 at Oulton Park. It's race meeting number 2 of the season. Here's Jamie Fluke on pole position with Josh Ladd in P2, Moreno Sarita in P3 with Peter Berryman P4. Ted Bradbury starts in P5 with Deegan Fairclough starting in 6th. In 7th, we have Luke McEwen with Matt Caruana in P8 with Peo Pev in P9 with Stanley Deslanders in P10. Josh Poulin will start in 11th with Dion Gowda in P12. James Armstrong will start 13th with Ryan McAuliffe in P14. William McIntyre will start in P15 with Mira Schmidt in 16th place. Chris Owen in P17 with Ethan Critchley in P18. Pete Harrod in P19 with Monica Ramos in P20. Carl Chase, Ruben Stanislaus, and Kian Gohill will round out the 24-car starting grid here. We also have Andy Scheel, who unfortunately is not part of the session here at the moment, so perhaps struggling to get himself in. But drivers taking themselves to the starting grid here, Lewis. It's a relatively short run in towards Old Hall Corner here at Oulton Park, and it's going to be a bit of a scrap on the way down the hill through towards Cascades as well.
Yeah, I think it's about 210, 220 meters, if I remember correctly, from pole position down to the first corner. Not a very long run indeed. You need to tap the brake ever so slightly in the first corner, but nothing more than that. You can almost, I think in these cars, you might actually be able to do it with a slight lift. We'll have to see on that one. The drama really comes, though, on the exit of Old Hall, like you say, on the run down the hill towards Cascades. That's where the big drama normally comes on a race start at Oulton Park, because it's so tight and it narrows up as you go through this right-hand kink and then drops seriously down the hill. Just got to keep our fingers crossed they're going to keep it clean.
Let's have a look then. In that number 22 car, that was of Luke McEwen, as we get our signal to go racing in very short order. Here we go, the ROKiT British F4 Esports Championship here at Oulton Park gets itself underway. It's a battle for the race lead immediately as Josh Ladd looks to the outside of Jamie Fluke. Battle for P3 as well between Moreno Sarita and Peter Berryman as well. But they all get themselves strung out single file as they start to descend the hill. Side by side in the mid-pack though, Luke McEwen versus Ted Bradbury further back in the order. Bradbury getting freight chained a little bit here as Caruana has now got himself towards the outside there. As here come the moves in towards the hairpin. Fairclough down the inside of Berryman.
Yeah, I've got to say, it might have been a little naughty for Berryman, but he did read it quite well. He was covering off Deegan Fairclough. It's kind of pushing him down towards the line. As he was doing that, he realised it was probably a little bit too late, backed out of doing so. Now has to worry about his teammate in Luke McEwen. Bradbury and Caruana switch positions, coming through his up towards Knickerbrook. It's Bradbury with the inside line, and Caruana's round right in front of him. That's Stanley Deslandis, who's gone up onto two wheels as well. Well, I'm pretty sure that was a guarantee. McAuliffe also off. It was a guarantee. Going side by side through there is always a bad idea.
Yeah, there's only one thing that's going to happen in that sort of situation, and it did. Ted Bradbury getting into the side of Matt Caruana, spinning right in front of traffic. Pev had nowhere to go at all. Josh Poulin just completely wrenched that car to the left-hand side, taking it through the gravel trap. Somehow he's been able to get through that one unscathed, and we're going to have a lot of visitors now down on towards the pit lane. It does mean that the final points paying positions have been shaken up a little bit. It's currently Ethan Critchley that takes that final points paying spot at the moment, with Mira Schmidt right behind him. So that's certainly shaken up the mid-pack.
Yeah, and here we've got Deegan Fairclough battling it out once again with Peter Berryman, who's trying to get to the outside. It's the 6. It is the 6 of the magic number, but obviously for very different reasons in this round. Fluke, Ladd, Sarika being the top 3, just separating ever so slightly from Deegan Fairclough, Peter Berryman and Luke McEwen. James Armstrong's not a million miles away off the rear end of this train. Did a really good job, must have done a really good job rather, to navigate what was going on down at Knickerbrook, but has lost, that's 3 seconds. You can see the gap there. Let's take a look here. So this is Bradbury going to the outside, and he is not really alongside. Got to say that. Not really alongside going into Knickerbrook. It's a tricky one, but I think Carolina might have come across a little bit. Ted Bradbury was going down the inside of a corner where he probably didn't have any right to be. It's a rough one. Yeah,
unfortunately we have 5 retirements from this race as a result, mostly as a result of that incident. So Monica Ramos is retired, Ruben Stanislaus, Matt Caruana, Peo Pev, Stanley Deslandes, all down on towards the pit lane and not looking to come out any time soon. So significant damage to those cars. We'll take another look. Oh, this is what happened later. Number 7 car in the wall. That's Stanley Deslandes. That's what happened to him. So maybe picking up a little bit of damage from that incident, and the car snapping on him as he was trying to limp it back to the pits.
Yeah, I mean, his car was, like I say, he went up onto 2 wheels going through that crash. So definitely had some damage coming up towards Druid. So kind of makes sense that he was struggling just a touch, is what it is. This is what I was talking about, though, with the slipstream. It's less prevalent around. If we were at Donington Park and we had 2 trains separated by this, within a lap or so, they'd be back together again. But this is not Donington Park. It's somewhere very, very different. You pick up the slipstream uphill, up Clay Hill here towards Druids, and then you get a little bit from Druids, obviously down towards the final corner at Lodge. But you're having to deal with the car behind. There's not that much in the form of high-speed straights. So you kind of got to catch up yourself and do the work yourself rather than allowing the slipstream to pull you along.
You do. So that's why the complexion of this race is just that little bit different from what we saw last time out. Has to be raced in a different style, has to be thought about slightly differently, but Berryman has a huge bunch of pace here. He's going to get the slipstream on the way down the pit straight, might be able to look to the inside for the all-tall corner. He does get himself the overlap on the inside, and out wide goes Deegan Fairclough. He has to be so careful about that. You can't be picking up too many instant points around here, let me tell you that. And Berryman's not going to be too happy about that situation either, because he might have felt that Fairclough was using the track limits to try and prevent the overtake from happening, but he's going to have another bite at the cherry around the outside at the hairpin here, but again unsuccessful.
Yeah, obviously Berryman's not really actually got that much pressure on his shoulders because he's got his teammate in McEwen directly behind, so there's no need to really look at the mirrors. Can focus fully ahead on trying to get past Deegan Fairclough. And to be fair, I'm going to say I don't really know why Peter Berryman's attacking so hard at this point. I think it would be better for him and for the team if he would allow Fairclough to kind of get the laps in, get up to the rear end of Sarika and assist Jamie Fluke on what is a 2v1 when it comes to Apex versus their main rivals in the championship in that Munster Rugby gaming car. I would think big picture team-wise rather than the solo outing. Again, this is, we've said it before, whilst there are great prizes for the drivers, the big prizes, what we're talking about here, are really on the team side of things. So you kind of want to play more the team game, but alas, that is not what's happening now, because here he comes, Berryman to the inside, straight down there on Deegan Fairclough, and this time the position might happen, but Fairclough right out wide again.
Another instant point, no doubt, and now they're side by side down the hill through Denton's in towards Cascades. There's a bit of a snap for Berryman. Berryman's out into the grass. He just about keeps it pointed in the right direction, doesn't spin all the way around, loses a couple of spots, returns back to the racing circuit. But yeah, another tough fight there for Peter Berryman. There was it's always scary when they go too wide through that section, and well, that was no different. Fairclough now trying to defend from McEwen. So McEwen trying to get himself, well, not so much revenge for what happened to Peter Berryman, but at least to have an attempt himself.
Yeah, I believe the car, by the way, that came through might have been Carl Chase, who's just jumped out of the way now to allow those two to come through. It wasn't for position, so actually didn't lose position from those further behind, of course, but now he does have the pressure on from Dion Gowder. But you just got to ask yourself the question, was it worth it? Was it worth it 6 minutes into a half-hour race, trying to battle for fourth? I think most people would say probably not right now. He's lost out a little bit. Thankfully, the car wasn't damaged, importantly enough, and he hasn't actually lost out too much, but still, it would be a little bit frustrating. Maybe you might want to lean a little bit, though, on Fairclough, because would you classify that as illegal to have stayed around the outside of T1 in that way? I don't really know, but here comes McEwen.
Yeah, McEwen, long way around through the first sector. Not going to be able to get anything done there. Just going to wait and bide his time, potentially to make the more obvious move down in towards the hairpin if he's able to get himself to the inside. It won't be on this lap, however, but he'll follow as tightly as possible through the apex. And that's actually a good run through the corner there for McEwen. So he's going to get a little bit of a pull on the way across Hilltop here. But again, like you said, the draft not as significant here at Oulton Park as it was at Donington. So it's still going to be a bit of a struggle. It requires more of a reliance on the driver's skill in terms of outbraking maneuvers. Yeah, they've got to really kind of work for the moves themselves. There's no magic button to press and suddenly you're through. You've got to be brave. You've got to have good control of the brakes. Deacon Fairclough out a little bit wide there coming through Druids. But you've got to have really good control of the brakes. And trust me, in this car, it is not easy, especially not around here, for various reasons. Number one, no braking zone around this circuit with the exception of the island hairpin. No braking zone is flat. Everyone is slightly uphill, slightly downhill, and normally quite bumpy. I mean, look at this coming into the first corner. You can kind of see them rise up, drop down again into this really kind of awkward turn one. It's a lot faster, a lot higher speed than you expect. It's quite wide through the midpoint of the corner. It tightens up on the exit. It means you're going a lot faster now. It means a dive bomb is more difficult. There isn't many opportunities to actually dive one down the inside. You've got the hairpin, and really, that's about it, because Hislop's is too tight and Lodge Corner's too fast. We'll see if McEwen can get around the outside here, but the answer is no, because it is quite a tight hairpin. Yeah, McEwen is having a really tough time in terms of trying to get past here. Here's what happens, because it wasn't his that happened behind. Was that Mira Schmidt into the side of... Ooh, it was. And, well, just trying to identify the other cars involved in that one. That was for in and around P10 there, at least. So final points paying division. As meanwhile, side by side, heading up the hill, here's Luke McEwen getting himself a half a car length advantage over Deacon Fairclough here. But Deacon will be able to come back at him on the inside of the double right at Druids and able to secure himself back ahead. McEwen doesn't seem to have, well, the overtaken prowess here at the moment to try and get past Fairclough, because Fairclough's been defending quite admirably, even though he seems a little bit slower, at least in terms of clear air time. Yeah, they're basically losing time like it's going out of fashion right now, because they've dropped 4 seconds to your races. They're dropping back into the clutches, potentially of Berryman and Gouda also. So more drivers to join this train if this fight continues. You've got to say for McEwen, though, to have got alongside on the exit of Knickerbrook, again, great respect between the two of them from that one. We've already seen some side-by-side through that part of the circuit not work today. So great respect between the two. Great racing action that we're seeing here for 4th place, though. Out a little bit too deep was McEwen, but it might give him a slightly better drive and a slightly better setup coming down towards Hislops, and he'll try it again. But you can see, realistically, he is a lot faster than Deacon Fairclough right now. Yeah, it is. And well, let's have a look towards the outside, shall we, for Luke McEwen, but not going to happen there in towards the chicane. Coming off the corner into Knickerbrook, though. Oh, he's got himself towards the inside there. Has that Apex Racing Academy car, and well, we have Peter Berryman as well, bearing down on these guys at a rate of knots. He got a fantastic run and get himself stuck in this battle, as Fairclough's just lost 2 positions in basically the single move here. And here's Dion Gouda. He's run up on this one as well, looking to apply the pressure to the back of Fleck. If he gets around the outside, potentially has half a binder going around the outside of Berryman as well, but he's tracked out a little bit too much over the curb, but well held in that Team Fortilla car. I mean, Deacon Fairclough had to pretty much jump out of the way of McEwen there. Kind of what we saw earlier on in the race between Bradbury sending it in very, very deep, coming into Knickerbrook, kind of in that vein. In that sense of it's basically up to Deacon Fairclough as to whether they have a crash there. If he takes, basically what would be a normal line, even given just about a car width to the line, they're both going round. So obviously had to jump out of the way a little bit there. Fair enough, is what it is. Still in the battle, though. That's the important bit. He's still behind McEwen. He's still behind Berryman. He's still in 6th place. And after the first round where they were losing points left, right and centre within the Racing Star camp, scoring 0 points over that first round, just getting onto the board. That has to be the key for the day right now. Yeah, it simply has to be. And, well, the good defense being put up and potentially remaining inside that top 10. It's all you need to do to try and get yourself some points on the board. And, well, at least for McEwen and Berryman, they've been able to get themselves past what they would consider a little bit of a roadblock and can continue chasing further down the road. But that might have been a little bit too much time lost to really do anything about Fluke, Lad, and Sarika further down the road, and those latter two in particular for the Apex Racing team, because this race, well, looks like it's going to be another Monster Racing. I'm not going to say 1-2 because obviously Jamie Fluke heads the field here at the moment, but at least another crazy points finish for the Monster Rugby Gaming lads.
Yeah, like I say, it's essentially a guaranteed double podium. That's the important bit. Whether it's first, second, third, or second, third, it is guaranteed that two of the Monster Rugby Gaming cars will be on the podium. Now, if you're Apex again, I know they don't want to play team orders, but Peter Berryman would need to get up into fourth, but he's actually dropping back. Peter Berryman has had some issues here, so there are going to be further dramas for the Apex Racing team. Now, was that something between himself and Deegan Fairclough? Maybe himself and Luke McEwen. I doubt there was that way. Might have been from the rear end. He certainly was backwards coming into the island hairpin. There's a little bit of damage on the front of the car, but nothing too major. Looks like he should be all right.
Yeah, he did get tagged from behind by Fairclough, and well, we'll get the replay of it in just a couple of moments. We focus back up on towards the race lead because Josh Ladd is certainly applying a whole bunch of pressure to the back of the number 49 Apex car. That's Jamie Fluke, who has led this race from the drop of the green flag, but it's going to be a big task for him to hold on to this one for the remaining 16 and a half minutes that we have remaining. Yeah, Fairclough down on towards the pit lane, so he'll drop down the order. He got damage from that potential contact that we'll show you in just a little bit. So it means that McAuliffe gets himself up into a points-paying position. Ooh, that's not very nice, is it?
No, that is a tricky one. It's very, very easy to do. You know, your third car in line, the concertina effect, etc. You've got to take it into account. And I don't think there is any doubt that was definitely Deegan Fairclough's fault. But that's a rough one. That's one where if I'd be furious. Oh my goodness, never mind. I was about to talk about that for a second, but Poulain and Armstrong having a little bit of contact as the Fordzilla car was coming straight ahead of the JHR Developments machine that might have an ever so slight amount of front right damage. It could be pulling slightly to the left. We'll see as they as they begin their rise up the hill. It is it's pulling slightly to the left. So that's brilliant. It was on the front left, rather down it was. But either way, for Fairclough, obviously that'll be irritating, frustrating. Post race, I'd be during the race, I'd be furious about that car, and then I'd take a little look and be like, oh right, it's one of them things, is it? Fair enough.
Yeah, that car's certainly crabbing. He's holding the wheel slightly to the left, to go straight. There we go. He has to come down in, and I have to wonder if that's a meatball flag. Yes, it is. So that's required repairs for James Armstrong. So and that's the way things work here on iRacing. If you get a little bit too much damage, then the automatic race control will call you in to get some damage repaired, just like it would they would in the real world if you were being a danger on circuit due to the damage on your car. But at least for Armstrong right now, it seems like he's going to take this as a retirement rather than do the required repairs. I'd
like to see a replay of that, because I do think that was because Poulain was moving over to the right on the exit of the corner. Certainly Armstrong had got the up and under, was ever so slightly alongside, and then contact was made. I don't know where fault lies with that one, but it does seem, from what we very quickly saw there, that potentially it was fault over to Poulain's point of view, where he's going to, obviously Armstrong's going to lose out an awful lot from this race, essentially being a retirement. We'll see on board here with Armstrong then on the exit of the corners. Poulain's gone down the inside. The up and under has worked its way over. Yeah, I mean, Armstrong couldn't do anything about that, to be fair. That is 100% on the Fordzilla man in my book.
Indeed, and of course the stewards will be looking at all of these incidents after the race, and will be applying penalties and license points as appropriate here in this one. So no action will be taken during these races here, only post-race. So that's the situation that we have. And, well, let's have a look at the top three, because it is an Apex Racing team car. Jamie Fluke leading the two Monster Rugby Gaming cars. Josh Ladd, Moreno Sarika. I got to say, Sarika has done very, very well to step into the shoes of Alex Spetz here in this series. Of Of course, a very, very, very quick driver in his own right as part of that Williams Esports outfit, and but he's done a great job to fill in the role, at least for this race.
Yeah, I mean, yes, talk about super sub. I mean, a brilliant position. But the thing is, again, this is where if I'm Sarika, obviously everyone, we're racing drivers at the end of the day. You want to win a race. Sarika's experienced enough, is knowledgeable enough, has won enough, to be perfectly honest, to sit here and think, right, I'm the sub for the round. I've jumped in for one race. My teammate's leading the championship and is battling for it right now. It's priority, surely it's priority number one. I mean, it's priority number one for the team to win the race. But then, just the tiniest step back from that, it's a priority for Josh Ladd to win the race above all else.
Yeah, that's how I would approach it if I was in Sarika's shoes here at the moment. Just let the championship leader get on with the job, try and get up into the race lead, and, well, try and support him in doing so in any way possible. And for Sarika, currently, it's just sit a couple of tenths of a second back and not apply pressure to your teammates. So he can get laser focused on the car ahead and try and make this pass in the final 12 minutes that we have to run. Having a little bit of a look further down the order, we have Kian Gohill is going to be lap traffic for these guys at the moment. We haven't had the lap traffic affect things significantly, at least so far this season. However, this is the first time for everything.
Yeah, I mean, I will say for Kian Gohill and the YRDA, anyone doesn't know what YRDA stands for, it's Young Racing Driver Academy, if I remember correctly. Quite a lot of drivers, obviously, that race in lower formula, be it British Formula 4 or other lower formulas in the country, will typically be associated with the YRDA, that do an awful lot of work to kind of push these drivers and give them put them in the right position where they've got the coaching available. And of course, Kian Gohill being one of, being a part of that camp rather for Arden, who in a lot of junior formula within the country. To say that he's gone a lap down, I mean, there were 23 cars in the race. He's 13th and has gone a lap down. It's been very much a more spread out day. Gohill is one of the drivers that's come into it with 2 instant points, of course, or 2 license points. And we know that the third one will be an exclusion from qualifying at the next round. Now, he didn't do qualifying in this. He failed to get a lap time onto the board, so had to start from the back. Now, if he gets a license point through this round, then he'll have 3 license points onto his record and have to start from the back again in a couple of weeks' time at Knock Hill. So that would be a very solid F.
Yeah, very unfortunate indeed. And especially to have that happen so early on in the season as well, definitely not ideal. We're riding on the back of Jamie Floki at the moment, your race leader. Back at the 11, Josh Ladd. Ladd has gotten very, very close coming into some of these corners, but hasn't decided to commit to any sort of move here just yet, and he doesn't really have to. Again, he has no pressure from behind because Sarika is there just sort of chilling at the moment, and there's no reason for him to cause Josh Ladd any problems. So he's got time on his side, and he definitely is the one that can dictate the pace here at the moment, because Fluke is the one that's looking in the wing mirrors.
Who would you rather be in this scenario right now? 10 minutes left to go in the race. Would you rather be... I was asking this question yesterday. We're doing some races, big slipstream, etc., etc. This is less big slipstream. You've got Fluke, you've got Ladd, you've got Sarika. Which position would you rather be? Because obviously the leader, you've got a lot of pressure on. Second, you're trying to apply that. Third, you're just sort of sitting back. You're chill at the moment. You're having a nice little Friday night drive, getting ready for the final chaos in the last 10 minutes of the race. Where would you want to be?
Believe it or not, I'd rather be second at this point, because I would be in control of my own destiny in a way. And again, the pressure's off slightly, because I could just sit behind, finish P2. If I make that decision, that's my decision, and I will take the points for it. But if I decide to go for it, then of course, whatever happens potentially will be on my shoulders if the car ahead defends fairly. So yeah, personally, I'd rather be second place, mostly because it's more fun chasing down other cars than trying to defend, I think.
I think second place is the more fun, and I think if this was a week ago, if we were at Donington Park, or if we were at Silverstone National, etc., we have plenty of other circuits within the UK. Snetterton, for example, I'd rather be second, 100%. I'd be sat there thinking, yes, I'd rather be second. Around here, where it is tight, where it is twisty, where it is difficult, nah. I want to be that leader, because as much as, yes, you're absolutely right about being in control of your own destiny, I think if you're the leader, this is a circuit where you can absolutely defend. At Donington, there are some places where you just literally cannot defend. If you defend on the back stretch up towards chicane, well, then you're a sitting duck coming down towards turn 1, the slipstream will eat you up. Around here, you have that control, and you just have to keep telling yourself to nail up. Almost, you know, I know it sounds crazy, because of course you would. You treat it like a normal race. These cars are small. They do give a lot of slipstream. They do tend to work in battle packs as groups. You do have to race them differently than you would race normal cars. But this circuit is essentially, it's almost like it's built for them. This is where that is kind of thrown out the window, and that, you know, this round becomes the exception where you actually race them normally as you would do a real car. So I would actually rather be in Fluke's scenario, absorbing that pressure, especially knowing the kind of character that Fluke is. Do you think his heart rate's above 120 at the moment? Yeah, probably not.
Nah.
He's pretty chill behind the wheel.
Nah. Jamie is, well, tends to be pretty chill. So I don't think the situation will phase him in any way. It's definitely not something, well, it is definitely something that he has dealt with before. So he knows how to negotiate. He is a very, very experienced driver here on iRacing. So definitely has the tools in the toolbox to try and take this race win with. It's just whether or not now Joshua Ladd can find some way of getting himself at least alongside. And that is a very, very tough ask around here. And, well, won't be able to do it down to the hairpin this time around because he's a little bit too far back through Cascades. Meanwhile, further back, Peter Berryman lost actually a couple more spots on that previous lap. He's down into P8 at the moment behind the two Team Fortzilla machines. He's going to look to the outside here onto the hairpin. That's William McIntyre on the inside trying to defend, and well, the inside is the place to be, it seems, through the hairpin.
Bit of connection as well there coming in from McIntyre just ahead. That'll be adding a little bit extra pressure to Berryman, kind of feeling like he really wants to get past the car ahead, but not 100% sure where it is. But you know, it is what it is in that sense. Down in 8th position. Obviously, questions of what could have been. Definitely could have been up in that 4th place battle, but then you might have been involved in some other drama. It is what it is. 8th place at the moment, dropping back. Maybe into a reverse grid, though. Obviously, that reverse grid's going to be between 5th and 10th. So you might be able to drag it back into that one. Meanwhile, we're Ride looking backwards from McIntyre, trying to defend ever so slightly. Might be a touch too deep there at the final corner, but actually wrestles it quite nicely. McIntyre with a very, very defensive line from Berryman.
Berryman simply not able to get back past at this stage. It's been a very tough first race for Peter Berryman, at least first race of the race meeting. He started in P4, he's down in P8, so net loss of 4 positions. So in terms of our biggest mover of the day, that'll be Kian Gohill, who is actually currently, if I'm having a look further down my order here, he's 1 lap down, yet he's gained 10 spots from where he started. So great going for the number 45 here at the moment, as Berryman continues to try and find some way around that Team Fortzilla car, but again, being unsuccessful still.
Yeah, I got to say for Gohill, I mean, obviously, he's the highest gainer because, well, he had to start from the back. Yeah, that by default makes your opportunity a lot easier to do so. I mean, he's got up to 13th. Despite all that work, despite going up 10 positions, he is a lap down and isn't going to score any points in the first race in today. But it's more important from those scenarios to put yourself in a better spot for the next race. That's where you've got to be looking right now. Not focusing on this race, not focusing on having no points, on finishing a lap down, on the stresses that's been in the first race. You're essentially qualifying yourself for the next race. You're putting yourself in a better position. You're ready to pick up the pieces. If there's any more drama from this lot, it's an extra position gain. You might be finishing this race in 12th. You're not going to be in a reverse grid draw. Fair enough. But you're at the point where you might be able to pick up the pieces of those that are trying to rise their way back up the grid in the next race. That is the important bit from making sure that you're at least at a bare minimum finishing this race.
It's basically using those faster cars as a wedge to try and follow through on and get yourself up into the top 10, those top 10 positions. Here's a look at the live standings here for the moment, though. Josh Ladd, 55 points, Fluke's 53, and McEwen 42 here for the moment. So I have to wonder if that's actually updated and if everything's working there, because I'm pretty sure it was a 2-point gap between Ladd and Fluke coming into this one. So we'll just have to double check those, but it could be that absolutely nothing has changed. That's also might be the case.
Yeah, not well. I mean, I think that is right because Jamie Fluke was fourth. So that, well, I mean, this is where like we'd literally just thrown Hugo Luis under the bus. Sorry, mate. No, that is. Those points are absolutely right. Josh Ladd at the moment though could give himself an even bigger championship lead if he could get down the inside for the racing. But do you think? Yeah, obviously he doesn't really know exactly where the champion standings are unless he's got someone in his ear being like, "Oh, they just showed it on the broadcast. This is where the which would be very early in the season to be going through those kind of steps." But do you think there's any, like, do you think he's really desperate to risk it all not only for himself but for the team to try and gather that race victory? Or do you think he'll just be sat there thinking, look, if the opportunity's there, fair enough. If it's not, second place is still pretty cool?
Yeah, it still is. And, well, that's... I don't know how much that works into the mind of Jamie Fluke, though. that's the issue, because if you ask any racing driver, they'll want to go for the race win. The race win is the only thing that really matters, and settling for a P2 is unthinkable. But sometimes you do have to look at it in that way and look at that big picture. As we're running on board with Jamie Fluke once again, he's done very well to hold on to this and very well to deal with all the pressure, because that changes things, but having a car behind you hounding you down is completely different from just running clear out laps. And the best drivers just know how to deal with this exact situation. And Fluke, it would be a very well-deserved race win if he's able to hold on for another 2.5 minutes.
2 laps to go then. Jamie Fluke in that race lead. McKeown's done a great job, by the way, because he's actually been setting some decent times to be closing into this group ever so slightly. It's not going to be enough, but it's just kind of one of those things, a nice confidence booster coming into the next race. I think, he might be a little bit frustrated in a sense. Obviously, McKeown having a double podium finish in the previous round at Donington Park with a third and third. And being right up there in the championship, 4th place, still pretty decent. It's a good point score. That is the important bit. But for his teammate, Deslandis, who's had a pretty big shocker in this day, like you say, out of the race, it's going to be a bit of a struggle for the Apex Racing Academy to score points, which then does swing the advantage more so over the focus in the Apex squad over to the Apex Racing team, the primary car, which Fluke and Berryman are behind.
Yeah, absolutely. So not a lot of time left to go in this race, let me tell you that. We're coming up towards the start of the final lap here, potentially. Of course, we'll have to see what the exact timings are as they head their way up towards the line. But they are coming towards the very back end of the lap now, coming through the final corner. It's a 1:18 lap time here. We've just crept under that, so this will be the start of the final lap then. One more lap for Jamie Fluke to hold on to grab a race win for the Apex Racing team. But he's got a lot of pressure from behind. Josh Ladd absolutely sent it in towards Oulton corner, but perhaps had overcooked it a little bit and washed out to the exit of the corner. But he's still close, sending his way down the hill through Cascades, now onto this little mini straight on the way in towards the hairpin. Ladd's going to gesture to the inside, but simply way too far back to really even think about a move coming down into there. Looks to try and get the traction off the corner to potentially have a run of it into his lops instead, but he's still potentially a car length and a half further back than he should be here at this point to try and make the move. And now the overtaking opportunities are pretty limited. So Fluke one step on that top spot here for the moment. There's a little bit of lap traffic further down the road, but I don't think that will really factor into this one. It would have if we went one extra lap, I get the feeling, although these guys are closing up on them at a rate out of knots. Lads, is there going to be any last-ditch attempt here? Again, I think he's just too far back. He can show the nose all he likes in towards Lodge Corner, but in the end, it will be Jamie Fluke behind the lap traffic, coming up across the line to take the race 1 win here at Oulton Park. Jamie Fluke takes it for Apex Racing Team here in the ROKiT British F4 Esports Championship.
Yeah, top 3 separated by a second again across the line, so super effort on that one, but Fluke victorious. Like I said, got denied last round by his teammate in Stanley Deslandis. I was putting those two names together and calling him Steslandis, that's fine. But yeah, great effort from Jamie Fluke, be able to catch up with him once again. But when it comes to that reverse grid draw, he'll be in the danger zone. If it is 10 again, it was 10 last time, it was 10 again, that would be almost bad luck for him. He'd be starting from right in the mid-pack.
Yeah, well, we're just a couple of moments away from knowing what our reverse grid is for the second race in the ROKiT British F4 Esports Championship. This is the base performance simulators round number 2 at Oulton Park. We've got one more race to go, and we have to set the grid for it. It will be a reverse grid based off of the results here of race number 1. But what kind of reverse grid, what positions will be reversed heading into that second race? We'll just have to wait and see. It will be between 5 and 10. Where's that spinny wheel going to stop? Is it going to be 7? Does he have the momentum to go over into 5? It does land on 5. So that means that Dion Gouda will start on pole position for race number 2. It's our smallest reverse grid possible here, Lewis. That's a challenge in and of itself.
Yeah, it's going to be very tricky indeed. So Fluke's going to have to drop back there, but we'll see the finishing order right now. And like you say, Fluke's on top.
Here we go then. Jamie Fluke takes the race win here in race number 1 with Josh Ladd in P2, Maria Sarika P3. That is a 2-3 finish for Munster Rugby Gaming. So that is a huge tally of points going to their name here in the ROKiT British F4 Esports Championship. Luke McEwen finishes in P4 with Dion Gouda P5, Josh Poulan P6 with William McIntyre P7, Peter Berryman P8 with Ryan Mikulev in P9, and then our final point scorer is Deegan Fairclough. He finishes in P10. Looking towards the second page results then, Pete Harrod is our last car on the leading lap in 11th. It was quite a unfortunate rate of attrition here today. A lot of incidents happening in the early going. So Ethan Critchley P12, Ryan Gohill P13, Carl Chase P14, James Armstrong 15th, Ted Bradbury P16, Ruben Stanislaus, in P17, Monica Ramos in P18, Mira Schmidt P19, Chris Owen in P20. And then we have our final 3 cars, Peo Pev, Stanley Deslandis, and Matt Caruana, rounding up the 23-car finishing results here from race number 1. There's your race winner of Jamie Fluke, Josh Ladd there in behind in the Munster Rugby Gaming number 11 car. We're just waiting for these drivers to get themselves in for their interviews here. And Lewis, you're going to be standing by with our race 1 winner, Jamie Fluke.
Yeah, got to catch up with him once again. Looks pretty cold in the Apex Racing City. I saw you in that jumper. Surely temperatures were quite. It was quite high in that race, temperature-wise, because it was. You're under a lot of pressure. Talk us through the race.
Yeah, I'm sweating now, but I don't feel particularly brilliant today, so that's why the jumper's on. But don't know really how I put it on pole. That feels like a minor miracle, but we did it and got off reasonably well off the line, and held on for half an hour. Again, don't really know how. Josh was sort of sitting. There was a few opportunities where he could have went for it, but he seems to be already thinking big picture on this one, so he didn't go for anything that wasn't outrageous. So we were able to hold on to the win.
Throughout the race, were you kind of updated as to what was happening within the other Apex Racing guys, whether obviously your teammate in Berryman or the other 2 within the academy? Were you aware of what was happening with them through the race?
So I have like standings on one screen, so I could kind of see with each lap passing, things rapidly changing, shall we say, and knew that it wasn't the smoothest of runs for those guys, but hopefully we can bounce back as a collective team for the second race.
Now, the reverse grid draw has happened. We've had the spinny wheel on the broadcast. It is 5, so probably about as lucky as you'll get on that one. But knowing that, it seemed like it was pretty difficult to overtake around here. Josh Ladd couldn't find his way past you through the race. What is the game plan to attack this second race?
Attack, but sensibly. Again, it's a long enough championship where you can make things happen for yourself, but also it's very easy to if you have 1 or 2 bad rounds, to throw everyone out of contention in terms of your team. So it's important that yes, we try and press forward and move forward and do the right things, but also think big picture.
Well, thank you to Jamie Fluke. We might be able to catch up with him in a little bit later after the second race. We'll let him go off and begin his preparations for that second race. Cheers, Jamie.
Cheers.
And we'll catch up now with Josh Ladd, of course, grabbed himself a second position in that race. Struggled to find your way past, though, Jamie Fluke. There was no real opportunity, no cracks in Jamie Fluke's armour through the race. Was there ever a point where you thought maybe you should just send it down from 3.5 kilometres back into the island hairpin? Or were you always pretty relaxed in that one, just waiting for the right opportunity?
I think it was just more of a case of no need to pass. In terms of thinking about a championship, we saw that Peter Berryman sort of had an issue, and same for Stanley. So we were just like, in terms of the championship for the teams with Munster, there was just no need to go for anything. We'd be outscoring him in this race anyway. I mean, I tried to maybe force him into an error on the last lap, but yeah, he's one of the most experienced guys out there. He's not going to make a mistake. So yeah, just a chilled race, really.
Is that where most of the focus is? We've discussed it on the broadcast a little bit, where the focus kind of probably more should be over on the team side of things, because of where the prizes are. The bigger prizes are more over on the team side of things. There are plenty of great prizes rather on the driver side of things. But speaking to a driver who is in contention for both, are your eyes more on the team side, or are they more on the sole individual, on the drivers?
I would say, I mean, coming into this race, I was thinking just about the drivers, because Alex Spetz isn't here. He's doing some karting, so we had Moreno come in, and yeah, I mean, once he saw Moreno's pace, obviously he's a best driver, so he was up to pace pretty quickly. We thought, let's just maximize it, and yeah, we knew it was going to be quite a hard track to pass on, and we both did a great quali, so yeah, just maximizing a team result once we saw our qualifying. Just yeah, no need to do anything crazy.
And what's your expectations from the second race? The reverse grid, by the way, there are a few caught up with 5, so you're going to be starting from 4th place in the second race. What are you kind of expecting from that?
Hopefully a very chilled out race. Nothing much going on. Just driving around by, no sends or anything for half an hour. But I severely doubt that will happen. I was very happy to see it was 5 though, not 10 like before.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for calm, this might be the wrong championship. Well, good luck, Josh, and fingers crossed we'll catch up with you after the second race.
Cheers.
We'll now head over to Moreno Sirica. Super sub. What a day. I mean, what a qualifying session. We normally see you in GTs and things like that. This is something slightly different to see you in a low-powered, low-downforce open wheeler. It looked like a lot of fun out there. How did you find it?
Yeah, it was actually a really good fun race. I jumped in the car, I think it was Wednesday, something like that, because I had a late call since Alex is busy with his real life racing commitment. So yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed the practice with Josh, and of course the race 1. Now we're gonna see what's going to happen in race 2.
Now, kind of in the actual racing side of things, obviously, practice you can learn about going fast. You can learn about maybe one kind of battles. In the racing, you kind of in that race you kind of stayed off the back of Josh. You kind of let him do his thing whilst he was attacking. Obviously, Jamie Fluke maybe didn't learn too much in wheel-to-wheel combat. What are you kind of expecting from the wheel-to-wheel combat in the second race? We know it can get a little bit feisty out there. Are you going to adapt quickly? Going to still be able to make some progress?
I mean, I'm expecting something similar to PESC, same kind of racing, really. Just like we know, it's a little bit more risky with the open wheelers since it's much easier to get damage. But yeah, I'm expecting. I mean, at least at the front, I'm expecting good respect on track. Yeah, I mean, race 1, of course, I was just staying behind Josh. Like my whole purpose of the race was just helping the team to collect points and helping Josh for his championship. So I prefer to don't do anything stupid, especially on the last lap. So I decided to back off a little bit.
Is that your priority for this round? Is helping Josh and making sure that he's getting enough points? Obviously, on the driver's side of things, if you do that, essentially, it helps the team anyway. If you're going to be around him, so is that your priority today?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as it stands, I'm only doing this round, so there's no point for me in winning races and stealing points from my teammates.
Well, we'll let you get your final preparations in for what I'm sure will be a very spicy second race. Cheers, Moreno.
Thank you, guys.
Again, we get to catch up with some of the drivers post round as well, because we've got a second race coming up. But great to hear about what was going on, what their mindsets are between races, because sometimes that first race, it can really change your expectations for an evening. It certainly seems like it for Jamie Fluke. He wasn't expected to be on pole position. Wow, what an effort.
He just looked bewildered in that interview. It's like, I don't know how that happened. I just don't know how that happened. But he's an incredibly competent driver, in any machine that you decide to throw him in. So at least for us, it wasn't that surprising that he was up there and fighting. So maybe he just surprised himself. But it was interesting hearing Josh Ladd talk about the bigger picture, though, because that's what we were kind of conjecturing a little bit in the race. Because it's so difficult to overtake here at Oulton Park. Why not just kind of sit there? You have your teammate right behind you. You're scoring mega points for your team. And it is a primarily teams championship here, even though we do have that drivers championship to be concerned about. Kind of why not? Because going for that race leads, putting yourself in a risky situation, you might get yourself involved in an incident, and then you're scoring, at best case, half the points that you were going to score if you drop further down the order. So it was a very reasonable decision there from Josh Ladd, a very mature one as well.
Well, also, with the penalties that we have within the championship, said before about the license points and how they're affected, essentially from racing incident. You brought up the graphic earlier where there was racing incidents, obviously no license points because racing incident. If you cause a car to lose between 1 and 10 positions, that's 1 license point. If it's between 11 and 20, then it's 2 license points. There's a few other factors as well, which might affect what kind of license points you get given. And then if you gain 3, then you have to basically start from the back in the first race of the next round. You'll get excluded from qualifying for the next round. Now, if you're in Josh Ladd's point of view, why would you risk anything? Because if you're trying to go for a win, sure, I mean that's fair enough. We're all race drivers at the end of the day. But if, let's say, for example, you go for a move down the inside into the island hairpin, you cause them to spin out, then you get a license point, maybe even 2 license points added to it. So not only have you potentially gained points in that race, which might be all right, but you've put some risk in your own race, and you're potentially adding some consequences further down the line. It is simply not worth it. And I love that mature driving, that mature mindset that he was well aware as to what was going on.
Yeah, and some of these drivers are indeed quite young. So to have, to be fostering that attitude would be a positive thing, because we see so much in the racing, at least, that drivers going for moves that they perhaps shouldn't go for. I mean, the exact same thing happens in the real world. So it's just sim racing mirroring real life racing as far as I'm concerned here for the moment. But to be able to take that step back and just say, okay, I'm in a good position here. Like, it's diminishing returns if I go for this move. Why not just sit here and just get these points on the board? And I think a lot of young drivers will look at that, should be looking at that and saying, that's the way I should make decisions in the middle of my race, and not just try and tunnel vision and go for every position.
Which we have seen from many a driver on the grid, potentially in a certain aspect. Maybe Ted Bradbury going down, of course, on the inside of Carolina. Speak about that incident a little bit, because obviously that was not thinking big picture. And this is a driver that has has lost a lot of points in the first 2 races of the championship. Now losing out further more so. This is 3 races into the season with 0 points onto the board for a driver who genuinely, hand on heart, has got a lot of experience in this car. Is someone who I'd absolutely, hand on heart, expect to be at a bare minimum inside the top 5, still having issues. What are we kind of expecting from the likes of Bradbury, from the likes of Fairclough, to potentially learn this? And they're both very, very young, but they're making a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sometimes just comes with the territory. Sometimes when, sort of you're more junior in your career, and especially when you get to a big stage like this one where the stakes are so much higher, you feel like you have something to prove, and then by pushing on a little bit too much, you end up making those mistakes, and you end up making yourself look like a bit of a fool. Not saying any of the drivers have done that in this race so far, but in this event so far, I have to get my cop-out cause in there. But yeah, it's definitely something to keep in mind. Maybe I shouldn't have used a stronger term as fool, but there we go. But we are just about to be heading into our second server of the day. Drivers getting themselves ready to get the reverse grid race going. Of course, we had 5 cars involved in the reverse grid sequence there. That's the lowest number that we have here for a reverse grid in this series. So it'll be very interesting to see how that turns out. And Potentially, it might have been a bit of a panic situation for the likes of Fluke and the 2 Monster Rugby gaming cars. If that reverse grid was any bigger, because if it was 10, then with how difficult it is to pass here, that would have been an even sketchier situation. So I think, like you said with Fluke, they are very, very lucky that it was 5.
Yeah, I mean, when you really consider it, obviously last round it was 10 at a circuit where you can really overtake. This round it's 5 at a circuit where it's really difficult to overtake. So far, I'd even say we've kind of lucked out on that one. That does not mean this race is going to be calm though, because everyone kind of says with the reverse grid draw, the bigger the number, the more chaos. And yeah, that I almost guarantee that is almost always the case. But we still have a lot of drivers out of position. We still have a lot of drivers that will be fighting their way back into it. Peter Berryman, for example, obviously will start this race from 8th place. Was not a part of the reverse grid draw. I think that might have been the number that Apex were like, fingers crossed, let's hope it's 8. Get Berryman to the front, let Fluke kind of work his way back up. But alas, that is not what's happened. It's kind of one of those races where a reverse grid draw like this still might cause so much. I mean, to be fair, any reverse grid is going to cause any form of drama. So I don't even know really what to expect from this second race.
Yeah, I'm kind of a little bit stumped here at the moment, and well, the unknown sometimes is quite exciting. But before we get into it, of course, we do have to thank Base Performance Simulators for bringing their title sponsorship to this second race meeting at Oulton Park. Their support is very much appreciated. The title sponsor of the series, ROKiT, again putting in an immense amount of support, not only for the esports side of things here for British F4, but on the real world side of things as well. And of course, SimuCube, one of our main sponsors here as well, producing some fantastic quality sim racing equipment that some of these drivers out there actually will be using, Lewis. So it's good advertising for them, I suppose.
Oh, 100%. I mean, for all of them, yeah, it's certainly a great experience to be a part of a series like this for SimuCube. I mean, I've played with my fair share of SimuCube wheels and whatnot. They are pretty much the highest quality you'll get. I mean, a lot of drivers at the top level of sim racing will absolutely swear by them as being top dollar when it comes to performance. That's why you see plenty of drivers out there using them. Of course, by the way, it's great that we have the webcams to kind of see in what's going on with all our drivers. And if you've got a keen eye, you can work out what everyone's using. I'm sure you see a few out there. And then every now and then you get someone who's literally taking part of the highest level of sim racing, who's racing on a wooden chair inside their kitchen, back upright, and you're like, how are they doing this? Still skill.
Yeah, I did that for a while. I used to have a wheel that only went 90 degrees either way and had no force feedback. You know, that's what I started iRacing on. Yeah, that's what I started iRacing on. So technology has definitely moved on since then. So you know, with the invention of direct drive wheels and things like that, and then becoming more popular. And even then becoming mainstream at this point. Some of the other brands also getting involved. But it's fantastic that we've got all of this support for this series. Esports gets bigger and bigger in terms of sim racing, and the support from the real world also is very, very much appreciated. That's why Motorsports UK have gotten themselves involved in this one to help develop their esports portfolio, and to give more opportunities to young drivers who may not potentially have had the finances to get a drive in the real world, even in the lowest levels of karting.
Well, you got to remember, like, through this level, I mean, I've said before about the Racing Star program and what that's done for Deegan Fairclough and Monica Bolton Ramos, how we're racing in British Formula 4 next year. That's, again, amazing. Like, there are these opportunities that are coming through things that are backed by Motorsport UK. But then even think of it on a small scale. Let's say, for example, you're a driver, like say in karting or whatever, and you'd be given the opportunity to race in this championship. Sure, there's no opportunity at the end of it to win yourself a big racing seat, and you'll have your motorsport career set for you, and you'll be done for life, etc. Yeah, sure, there's not that. But let's say, for example, you've been put in the right scenario where you've now been linked with a team like Arden, like JHR Developments, all these motorsport teams that are backing their way, and these are the real teams that are actually being involved in the sim racing stuff. I was having a chat with Ollie Dutton, who's the manager of Fortec, a few weeks ago, the season finale of the British Formula 4, of course, at Brands Hatch. And we were having a good chat, and they were saying about their involvement in sim racing. Obviously, they're not involved in this championship, but they were considering it. They had a couple of issues with some drivers and whatnot, so they never decided to. Point being is that these real world teams are moving their way into sim racing to a certain degree. So if you're a driver that's going into karting or whatever, and then this could be the opportunity where you're making contact that might end up helping you later on. It kind of will all trace its way back to that one series you did where you kind of just took a gamble and you went with this one team, and suddenly there was the right contact in the right place, and boom, you've got yourself something in karting or something that's actually tangible in real life that will assist. And the only way that happens is by the sim racing and motorsport worlds merging.
Yeah, absolutely. There needs to be that mutual support. I used to be of the opinion that there should be two separate things, but now I've kind of seen the light in a sense, and know that the two need to work together to be able to grow together in a sense. And you just see that by some drivers taking part in both esports competitions and in the real world competitions as well. We've got a few drivers in here. We've got Dion Gauda, who will compete in the real world championship next season. With Colin, and he's also competing in this one as well. And so it goes both ways. The real life drivers can come into sim racing and do well and take it seriously and compete in these esports championships as just as much as drivers can go the other way.
Yeah, we're at the very, very early stages of this. This is something which, sure, there have been drivers that have made steps before, even back in 2018, 17, etc. There are some drivers that have already started making steps, but the reason why these are becoming more prevalent now is because normally drivers back then, they were already kind of on the career ladder of getting into motorsport, of getting into the right place, the right time, and then kind of like maybe they built a contact through sim racing, or in some cases, some might know the one I'm speaking of that might have raced an FT recently, where the sim racing community jump onto it as being like, this driver's made it into this championship, and that's obviously purely through sim racing and nothing else, absolutely nothing else at all, which is obviously total rubbish. They've worked their way up into that scenario, and it's kind of been more through what they've just done in the world of motorsport that's rather than what they've happened in sim racing. But we're now at the point where it does matter what you do in sim racing, where that is the opportunity. Like I said, we're right at the start of it, but genuinely 4, 5, 6 years time, it could be almost commonplace where, for quite a few, obviously motorsport backed sim racing campaigns, there will be something which could link you to a drive at the end of it. And it's only because people are taking motorsport companies, whether it's Racing Star, whether it's Motorsport UK, or whether it's official championships, whether it's because they're taking risks now by getting involved with sim racing right now. And that's why they deserve so much respect, that they're essentially the pioneers of this merger.
Yeah, and well, getting in early, you'll reap the most reward. At least that's at least my perspective on it. Still in quite early stages, quite small stages at this point, but the growth potential is absolutely massive. I mean, you see how much sim racing has grown even over the past 3-4 years. So it is very, very promising indeed. However, we are about a minute away from getting ourselves our starting grid for race number 2. So less talking, more on-track action potentially here as we'll get going in a couple of moments' time. Looking at the track conditions out there as well, another relatively warm one. We failed to mention it actually in that first race. The track temperature up in the high 30s. It's going to be the same again here in this particular session. It means things are going to be just that little more slick out there than they otherwise would be. 37 degrees on the track is quite toasty for a British afternoon.
Yeah, of course, it's not set. The conditions are not based on the time that it is presently. We are deep into October, which is absolutely crazy. The weather's set from essentially the time that British Formula 4 raced around here in real life. It's set on those kind of conditions. So essentially it's towards the start of summer, middle of spring. So it's pretty toasty up there. I did go to, I was in about a month before. This is in May. This is when this is a in-game set. I did come in April, and this area, I don't know what it is, but it is toasty. It is a hot little spot of the UK. And like you say, it will affect tyres, but more so than anywhere else, more so at Knickerbrook than any other corner on the circuit. That is the one where you're turning quite heavily, you're getting onto the power quite heavily. That's where you expect the rear end to slip and slide around more so than any other circuit. That's where you'll notice the condition change.
That is indeed going to be one of the trouble spots. Already has been in that first race. But here's your starting grid then for race number 2 here at Oulton Park for the ROKiT British F4 Esports Championship. It is Dion Gowda on pole position thanks to the reverse grid with Luke McEwen in P2, Moreno Sarica in P3 with Josh Ladd P4. Jamie Fluke will start in P5. Josh Pullen narrowly missed out on a reverse grid pole position. He starts in P6 with William McIntyre in P7, Pete Berryman P8 with Ryan Mikulev P9 and Deegan Fairclough in P10. Pete Harrod will start in 11th with Ethan Critchley in 12th place. And then further down the order, we have the likes of Kian Gohill starting 13th, Carl Chase 14th, Armstrong, Badbury, Stanislaus, Ramos, all the way down to P18 there with those particular names, as we have 5 seconds before we get ourselves off and away here. There's the view towards the very back of the order. Drivers getting themselves ready here for another race at Oulton Park in the British F4 Esports Championship. And here we go. Green flag is out there. Dion Gowda immediately going all the way to the pit wall to try and defend down in towards the old tall corner. Luke McEwen looking all over the back of him at this stage, immediately trying to get himself up into the race lead. He finds himself alongside driver's right-hand side as they start to descend the hill. There's been an instant towards the very back of the field there. Everyone else able to get through cascades just fine, but Gowda, that was a big defense on the initial start, and it might not even be done just yet as Luke McEwen looks to go the long way around at the hairpin. That typically has been unsuccessful, at least remembering back from race 1. Oh boy.
Yeah, that was, I think it might have been Moreno Sarica, not Josh Ladd, in the middle of all of it. Ethan Critchley having a bit of an issue coming out of the hairpin, but there was a bit of contact with one of the Munster Rugby gaming cars. Might have just damaged the suspension ever so slightly. It's Moreno Sarica who's directly ahead of what we're looking at now. Oh, that's a big squeeze over the front end, of course, of Peter Berryman, someone off in the gravel.
Oh, big wide moment through the gravel there. Coming back onto circuit, I think that might have been Carl Chase involved in that situation there. As we look a little bit further up the order here, and see, well, further up the order from the very back at least. We're looking solidly mid-pack here at the moment. Someone's got 2 tyres in the grass on the way down into there. That is crazy, crazy stuff.
Yeah, we're looking at the moment with Deegan Fairclough, who's picked up a couple of spots, but meanwhile at the race lead, Luke McEwen's taken over it from Dion Gowda.
Yeah, he gets to the inside roll tall corner. Now Josh Ladd looks to try and follow through and does so in quite competent fashion as well. Ladd's great opportunistic driving to be able to squeeze through on that one. Gowda's not going to be too happy with losing 2 positions at once basically there, but he's got support from behind now. Josh Poulan in that fellow Team Fordzilla car, but he might be preoccupied with Jamie Fluke. 2x2 into the hairpin. Josh Ladd trying to defend from Gowda. Poulan trying to defend from Fluke, and well, the defenders hold on for now, but Fluke looking very, very aggressive at this stage.
Superstar from Josh Ladd to have got up into second spot, like we say. No progress made from Jamie Fluke, who's now got Moreno Sarica directly behind, and a couple of Fordzillas behind as well. We've got McIntyre, got Berryman, got Fairclough and McAuliffe inside the top 10, but great start from Josh Ladd, the Drivers' Championship leader right now, and he'll be increasing that one if he keeps this up. Luke McEwen, who was denied a podium in the previous race with a 4th place finish, looks to take a victory potentially in this one, but we are way too early to be discussing that, and Josh Ladd, I think he'll be more determined to take one off of Luke McEwen than he would be. Who's that off of the barrier? Armstrong?
Someone's had a big one. Yeah, it is Armstrong having a big, big incident there. I think he might have caught the curb and caught the grass. If there's one thing you don't want to touch with any part of your tyre here in iRacing, it is the grass. It acts more like wet grass, even in dry conditions sometimes. So it's definitely something to avoid. Meanwhile, two Team Fordzilla cars going side by side, Poulan and Gowda, and that's Poulan actually getting the spot on his teammate there.
Yeah, obviously just a light switch, but nothing too major. Fordzilla just going one way, one going up, one going down. The Dion Gowda, who's plenty fast enough in these cars, now has to deal with the pressure of Jamie Fluke, the latest race winner in the championship. It's a train at the moment. We've not had as much drama as we had in the previous race at this point. I think that's to be fair, that's a good thing. We could do with a slightly calmer start to the race. Leaves more cars in it for later on. Let's see what happened to Armstrong. So it was a solo issue. He picked up too much grass. A big hit on the barrier. That will have damaged the rear left quite significantly. I think he might have come straight back into the pit lane.
Indeed. So as we head towards the end of this lap here, we have a couple of retirements already. James Armstrong retired from the race. P.O. Pev is out as well. Pete Harrod out. Kian Gohill's out. Monica Ramos is out. Mira Schmidt also out as well. So a significant instance, at least in the start of this race. This might give us a little bit of a better clue of what happens. That's the number 697 car getting punted out wide. That was what happened to Ethan Critch there.
Yeah, he got pulled off by his teammate as well, so that makes things worse. Although, to be fair, his teammate did have someone right on the inside also, so it was kind of a bit of an unfair one. It's certainly not what I classify as breaking the #1 rule of motorsport and sim racing and taking your teammate out. Oh, a bit of a moment there from Moreno Sarika coming through Cascades as they head up and over the rise, coming down into the island hairpin. Fluke was having a bit of a look. There is certainly one in the background. I think it's Berryman defending for Deegan Fairclough. Well, those two, we've seen a bit of contact between. I wonder what's going to be happening now. Fairclough up a few positions, up into 9th.
Ding ding, round 2. Let's get it going, boys. But with 25 minutes to go, you might not really be wanting to make too many risky moves. Or do you really in that mid-pack? Because it seems like the only way you're going to be able to gain positions is being aggressive about that. Ooh!
That was lap 1. What happened to Monica Bolton-Harris and Mira Schmidt?
Yeah, Schmidt was just in such an unlucky spot there, just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And unfortunately, she gets collected in that one. Didn't quite see what the incident was that triggered the entire situation. It was a side-by-side ahead that caused the car to spear across the circuit. But yeah, super unfortunate there. But heading towards, well, start-finish line once again. This is our leading pack. This is Luke McEwen. This is Josh Ladd, Josh Poolan, Dion Gowda, Jamie Fluke, all involved in this one. You can technically also count Sricha in this one as well, as long as he gains another couple of tenths of a second. So we got a good train going on here for the race lead, and I get the feeling this will be a theme unless someone's able to magically squeeze their way by, get to the front and try and pull a gap, because it seems like the bottlenecking is real here at this circuit with how tough it is to get past.
I wouldn't even necessarily rule out, genuinely, Ted Bradbury, 11th spot at the moment. Obviously, a few positions gained that race, but I would say the race, the train for the lead, genuinely goes from 1st to 11th right now. Look at them coming over. You're absolutely right. There was a bit of a gap between Jamie Fluke and Moreno Sarika. Fair enough. But it's not that much of a gap. And like you say, when one car slows down, it's particularly going down to the hairpin. The leader slows down for it. Then the car behind has to slow down even more. The car behind has to slow down even more than those two. And then blah, blah, blah. And then, the concertina effect. And that is what drags them back into it. That's why we saw the issues. There has been one, though, in the background. Who was that? I think McIntyre's had a bit of a problem. We're riding on board with McAuliffe, who's trying to get to the outside of Deegan Fairclough. But certainly, Will McIntyre had a bit of a problem leaving Knickerbrook.
Here we go, and they all stack up, heading their way down and into the right-hand side. Mikulev around the outside at Lodge. That's a big attempt, but simply doesn't have the drive off the corner to make that one successful. So Fairclough's able to get himself back through. Mikulev is now concerned about Bradbury in behind as well. As we go on board with Dion Gowda, things are happening all over the place here at this circuit. Gowda through on his teammate Josh Poolan there. Fluke's getting himself involved as well. You have to have eyes everywhere to keep track of what's going on at the moment. Somehow the race has just come to life sporadically.
I was going to say, I think Poolan, Fluke and Sarika, and Fluke were 3 wide coming off of T1 there. McEwen's checked out now. Ladd's got a lot of pressure on his shoulders. Gowda with Poolan straight down the inside once again. Fluke still in 5th. So amazingly, despite all of that, no one's actually really switched around in this group. We're back to basically where it was with just Gowda and Poolan switching over.
The more things change, the more things stay the same, it seems, as Jamie Fluke unsuccessful in trying to get by Poolan there in that instance. Fluke, the big loser out of this one, at least I have to argue, because he was looking like he was going to gain a couple of spots in that entire situation, but instead falls back into P5. That is exactly where he started, though, so it's not too bad going. But yeah, that could have ended in so many tears, though. There were multiple moments there where 3 cars were basically very much within the same space as each other, and any bit of contact would have resulted in a big pile-up.
Yeah, 2 questions as to what was going on there. 1, what happened to McIntyre on the exit of Knickerbrook, and 2, what happened to literally everyone else inside the top 6 coming out of turn 1 on lap. It's given Luke McEwen a 1-second lead over Josh Ladd, so he's checked out ever so slightly, and that really around here, 1 second's the perfect number, because that's the bit of breathing room where suddenly the train behind is no longer dependent on what you do. It means that you can check out. You don't have to look in your mirrors at all. You can just drive. You can see McAuliffe there trying to get around the outside of Fairclough and Ted Bradbury. I mean, that is a trio. Fairclough, McAuliffe and Bradbury. Those are 3 very, very aggressive, very, very young drivers. Let's see what happened down into turn 1.
Here we go, getting towards the inside, just sending it down into the Oulton corner. Complete overcommitment from Poolan there. That's why he was slow off the corner and allowed his teammate to get himself back through. It's one thing to be aggressive, but I think you need to dial it back a little bit there and towards turn number 1, because no way was he going to make the exit of the corner there.
No, I mean, yeah, that was never on, really, was it? And I've got to say, a bit of a shame for Fluke, who did get slightly alongside and then got squeezed off on the exit of Oulton. Just is what it is. Those are some of the things that happened.
Feklo has had an incident out there, spun around. I think this is coming out of Lodge. Indeed it was. So the Racing Star car getting into problems here, and definitely no shortage of them over the course of this season for Deegan Fairclough. He might have just slightly run over the back of Peter Berryman through Lodge Corner, and it was a good avoidance action as well from Ted Bradbury to get out of the way of all that. Can't wait to show you the replay of this one, because that was great reactions from the 53.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to be swift on the reactions. There's a bit of a lock-up in the background. That is McIntyre and Berryman. Big lock-up from McIntyre coming down to the island hairpin directly behind. No switch between the two of them. McIntyre still 7th. Berryman still, frustratingly, 8th place. But now with a bit of breathing room on that train behind. Of course, McAuliffe there. Bradbury just off the rear end of McAuliffe. Deslandis and Caruana also closing in, trying to force their way back up into this fight. Points are definitely on the table for a lot of those. Remember that the points are the same for race 1 as they were for race... same for race 2 as they were for race 1. I get my words the right way around. The top 10 score points. So you've got to be in that top 10, got that top 10 finish.
Yeah, here's what happened to Deegan Fairclough. Oh, just drives it in too hard. Slight contact with the back of the Apex car and spins the car back around. Luckily, no one else coming to interfere, and off and away he goes again, albeit down in P13. 3 spots lost compared to where he qualified. So, again, unfortunate for Fairclough there, but again, this seems to have been a theme for him throughout this season. He had his fair share of troubles at Donington Park as well, and it seems like that does not change heading into round 2 either.
No, becoming a bit of his own worst enemy in some of this. That's just how it goes sometimes. You have one of those bad races, and then suddenly it's a few more like just come all at once. More of a term in other sports and whatnot, but you can use it in sim racing and motorsport. It takes 1,000 laps to build confidence and 1 lap to break it, and that certainly is the case, it seems, for Deegan Fairclough, who was doing such a good job back at Donington. But as soon as one thing went wrong, suddenly everything seems to have gone awry, is what it is, basically. It's almost a bit of side-by-side between Bradbury, Deslandis and Caruana, I believe, coming down to the hairpin, but alas, they've continued on in their little train. Bradbury hanging on to the final points-paying position, but Deslandis, of course, the Donington Park race winner in the second race of the championship, trying to effect some form of pass on Bradbury.
Deslandis still looking down the inside of Bradbury there, but not going to get anything done through Lodge, and in fact he's completely butchered that corner and has allowed Matt Caruana to get himself a run down the pit straight and to get himself clear before even the entry to the Old Hall corner arrives. Car's coming off of pit lane potentially as well. Keon Gohill getting himself back out there on circuit. And, well, he might be able to gain at least one position here, because we have James Armstrong retired ahead of him. So as long as he can do the laps, then be able to get himself promoted up into P18. No points for him, though, but at least getting some track action out there and getting some time to at least participate, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, in race 1, this is the kind of thing with events like this. Race 1, I'd be throwing you under the bus if you retired for the race. I'd be like, no, just keep going regardless, because there's a few extra spots for race 2. In race 2, I'm kind of like, do whatever you want. Because it's like, once the race is done, there's nothing more you can gain from it. Like, you're hoping for other people to fall off and some more drama, fair enough. If you're 12th, 13th, 14th, you might actually end up almost lucking yourself into some points later on. But when you've had some big drama, when you've been to the pit, I genuinely do not blame anyone for being like, no, I'm out, because these are stressful evenings, big time stressful evenings.
Yeah, absolutely. And, well, look at the defense that has to try and come off here. This is the battle towards the top of the order. It is not at the very top, though. It's Dion Gowda versus Josh Ladd coming through to number 1. Ladd able to hold on to that second place for now, but Gowda's going to come back at him, coming down the hill towards Cascades. Can't get anything done through there either, but it looks like Gowda's found a turn of speed here. He had to lift out a little bit coming off the corner. It's allowed his teammate of Poulain to get himself towards driver's left-hand side. There's contact, and it sends Josh Ladd out into the runoff area, out into the main circuit pretty much, as we do have the cut through here on this island layout. Ladd, he's going to be absolutely livid about that. Down into P12 now.
Yeah, that is massive for the championship. Not only on the teams with the Munster Rugby Gaming team but for Josh Ladd in the drivers as well. That's a big hit, but he's jumped straight into this train. Caruana, Bradbury, there's Landis all ahead of him, all ready to be picked up, but he needs to be patient. There is still, let's remind you, over half of this race left to go. There is plenty of time on the table for him to pick up these positions wisely without risking too much.
It's tough to do, though. It's been so much of a struggle as they'll start to go side by side ahead of him. It was a poor exit for Bradbury, has allowed Caruana to get to his outside. Spinner ahead as well. Mikolev is around and out into the grass there, so a free spot for all of these guys. Careful with the rejoin there, Mikolev. You got to be so careful. Meanwhile, back towards this battle, Bradbury still trying to defend down in towards 10, number 1 from Caruana. Ladd sends one on this Landis and forces him out all the way wide. Yeah. Caruana has 2 tires in the grass on the way down the hill now. He decides to back out of it, which possibly would be a smart decision, and he does get a run in towards the hairpin here, so Caruana might be able to make this move. He goes towards drivers right the left-hand side here, the long way around to the hairpin, but how many times have we seen this, Lewis, and how many times have been successful? 0. And Caruana finding that out quite quickly, and now Ladd's alongside.
I mean, he did give it a go, but yeah, he's going to lose out in this, potentially 1 position, maybe even 2. You can see some front wing damage on Deslandis' vehicle, so that might cause him a couple of issues. Deslandis is going for it, so Ladd's picked up the spot, now moves up into 9th. Deslandis can't come through, so Caruana hangs on to 10th, but Bradbury was driving with quite a lot of aggression behind the wheel on the run down towards Cascade there. It was a little naughty to have squeezed a car out like that, but you know, fair enough, all's fair in love and war and all that jazz, but yeah, Bradbury's feeling the pressure. Ladd now needs to have seen that and gone, right, this guy is driving pretty aggressively, I need to be aware of that and not do anything like over risky, because you've got to time these moves. You've got to basically race drivers differently. Deslandis, the way you're racing Deslandis will not potentially work against Bradbury.
Yeah, and ahead of these guys, McIntyre and Berryman are having a bit of a scrap for P6 as well. So lots of places to look at if you want to try and find action here. Not something I would have thought I'd be saying here heading in towards race number 2 with how tough of a time in the passing department these guys have had it. But that's just the situation that we have now. This group is giving us some good entertainment. Ladd all the way to the insides there. Caruana sending it out there. No momentum off the corner whatsoever. Can't get anything done. But now Ladd has his sights set on Ted Bradbury to gain another couple more points on this recovery drive he's having to pull off here at the moment.
I think Poulain's had a problem. Poulain has had a problem. So Sarika's got through. Not sure what has happened here for the Fordzilla man, but there has been further drama and a spin coming out of his lap. So I can only assume that was definitely assisted. You wouldn't normally assume there's going to be a car spun around there. So you've got Moreno Sarika over the rear end. It was solo. Never mind. Cancel that one on my book. That is why I don't run around here. But yeah, big effort.
Very rare to see. Meanwhile, the battle rages on between McIntyre and Berryman. Ooh. Berryman almost got his front wing clipped off through the exit of Lodge Corner there. Very, very close indeed between the two of them, and McIntyre getting the elbows out. He doesn't care whether or not it's a pro driver behind him that competes in the top level of iRacing.
Oh, a little bit of brush between those two Fordzillas, which is kind of what put him on the wrong line. I mean, I don't know how I feel about that one. I don't know how I feel. Like it was definitely a weird one. Josh Ladd was maybe a little bit too far over to the right. Obviously, there's maybe a bit of air as well that kind of squeezed him over. But yeah, that was certainly an odd one. Josh Ladd, though, the important bit is that he's lost out an awful lot from it. But still, potentially, a top 5 is on the cards. He's in 8th position at the moment. Less than a second up the road is the 5th place of McIntyre. So he's definitely up for some decent points.
Is, and that will be a very, very big help for him. Of course, coming into this one, it wasn't the most fantastic of days race days for McIntyre in that previous event that we had at Donington Park. He was actually, rock bottom, 35th in terms of points coming into this one. Of course, that's including all the tiebreakers on the 0 points that we have going on there. So to be gaining 5th place points coming out of this race 2, potentially, he's trying his best to hold on to it at the moment, and will have to do so for another decent chunk of time. That would absolutely launch him up the order, as we see further behind a little look from Bradbury.
Yeah, that was just a whiff trying to go for something, but alas, not making it through at the moment. It is quite close for second spot. Gowther under pressure from Fluke at present, as you were saying, 3/10 between the two of them. But knowing how patient Fluke was Oh, well, I was rather actually the way around. Know how patient Lad was, but never mind. I'll talk about that in a second, because Bradbury straight through potentially on both of them. Wow, just kind of caught up as the two ahead of this train were getting into each other ever so slightly. Bradbury's come straight through and has grabbed 5th. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was Berryman into the back of McIntyre. Tangle once again. Big incident there down into Hislops involving those two cars. I think it was always going to come to a head at some point between the two, and it had already into the hairpin, but the fight continued on into Hislops and they made contact, and thankfully no one else but them were involved in that one. But that was a little bit too close for comfort there between the two on the way down in towards the braking zone for the chicane. I think McIntyre might have just given Berryman the squeeze a little bit too much.
Yeah, I'd agree. And again, that's big for the championship, because for the Apex Racing team, they're going to be bleeding points from that. Despite having Fluke up in 3rd spot, it has not been the round for Berryman, and unfortunately for him, it's no fault of his own. I mean, that is a slam dunk straight onto Will McIntyre. Like, he was the one that squeezed off there. And yeah, you got a feel for Berryman in all of that. Either way, the battle is still going. Bradbury's under a lot of pressure because Josh Ladd's closed in. Caruana and Deslandis also in that train. And hey, look at that car in the background. Deegan Fairclough, he's closing in.
Yeah, out of nowhere he comes in. But you see Matt Caruana trying again around the outside of Josh Ladd, but simply not getting anything done. We're running on board with Stanley Deslandis, who's on the back of this train here at the moment. It's been cut down somewhat to 4 cars due to the incident that we saw down into this exact section on that previous lap. But still potential action on the cards, especially as Deslandis gets himself a pretty good run through and out of Knickerbrook, and a little bit of a wiggle there for Matt Caruana potentially. Not entirely sure what that was about.
Yeah, I mean, clearly there's been a fair share of drama in this group, and there's been some hostilities dished out, so, you know, I think they're all feeling the pressure. Certainly it is a troublesome quartet at the moment that might become a quintet as well. Like we've said before, Fairclough is closing in. Bradbury, though, on the defence. Josh Ladd focusing on more than just the single race. He's focused on the title. Meanwhile, Fluke and Gowder have switched over, so Jamie Fluke's got himself up in the 2nd spot.
Yeah, and he did it pretty, well, pretty convincingly into this section down into Cascades. So Fluke up into P2, which would be P1, P2. If he finishes exactly where he is now, that would be a great point for Jamie Fluke. But look at this battle, though, into the hairpin. Caruana on the inside, Stanley Deslandis attempted to go the long way around, and well, it's a rarity, but that has been a bit successful for Stanley Deslandis. It's been very successful in terms of trying to get himself past, and Caruana just decided to back out of things down into Hislop, seals it. Yeah,
I mean, I don't know how you were kind of discussing how you treat battles in the previous race. Obviously, we were talking about being Moreno, Sarika, Josh Ladd, or Jamie Fluke. In this scenario, if I'm Caruana, I'm kind of sat at these three being like, this is a guaranteed crash. This is a guaranteed crash. Like, there would be no doubt in my mind that something will happen and you'll pick up a couple of spots between these. So I would not be rushing. You can see there, as we've said before about Deslandis and the front wing damage, he is going to have a really big trouble to get through. It's not affecting his speed whilst he's in the slipstream, but I promise you, the second he pulls out of that slipstream, it's like he's driven into a brick wall. The speed will go, and it's why, unfortunately, to be harsh on Deslandis, I very much doubt he will be in 5th place in this race, because I don't think he could actually get through and get past and stay there with the damage that's on that car. I mean, if he can, I'd be very, very impressed, but I just don't think it's going to happen.
Well, he's trying to improve positions here at the moment. Again, sent it to the outside of Josh Ladd. Last of the late breakers down into here, but not finding the success this time. And, well, it still looks like he has some form of pace behind the wheel of that car despite the damage, and perhaps isn't losing as much in a straight line as we would originally think. Of course, you know, the track layout helped him here with the lack of any incredibly long straights, where that would be a massive factor.
Yeah, like I said, if this was Donington Park, yeah, you need to go in the back into the pit lane. Around here, thankfully, you get away with it. Somewhere like here, somewhere like Knockhill, you can typically get away with damage like that, but it's not going to be fun. It actually, genuinely, probably won't affect the balance that much. Not as much as you'd think. And there'll be a slight more understeer, oversteer, depending on where the damage is. There'll be a slight change, but nothing too much. This is back on the battle for second, because Gowder's straight down the inside of Fluke. Fluke's recently grabbed it, but he can't rest too much here in the battle for second.
Yeah, this has been a fantastic little fight that's been going on for the second and third podium spots here. It's been a big old scrap, and Gauda's had a fantastic day, by the way. It's been an incredible performance from him here in race number 2. Oh, Landers out into the grass, and well, risk going to the other side of the circuit there with how much speed he went off there. That number 7 car certainly has seen better days. Damaged front wing, now a big off on this particular lap. I'll have to try and cycle back to try and see exactly what happened with it. And it was another attempt on Josh Ladd, I think.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. You don't typically see a car going out that wide solo. Normally there would be a touch of assistance, but I've been wrong on that one to date. Let's take a look. So like I say, he's going around the outside of Josh Ladd. He's trying to make it stick. I mean, he's just on the I wouldn't say marbled line. It's certainly the less grippy line out there at this point in a race like this. And on a hot day, yeah, once the rear end steps out, it is very tricky to catch. He's kind of lucky that he caught it the way that he did, especially going over the grass. Got a bit of the jump as well. That can break your suspension if you're not careful. So I will say he's lucky to be in 9th spot at the moment. Ladd, though, still trying to challenge to grab himself back inside the top 5 after the send down into the hairpin, which dropped him down the order, out even inside the top 10. So he's done an amazing job, our champion leader, with getting into this position.
Yeah, indeed. It's been an exemplary drive, the issues notwithstanding, for Josh Ladd. To get himself back up into this position, as he said. Another spot, a top 5 finish for him would be an amazing points recovery, although he is getting absolutely hounded at the moment by Matt Caruana from behind. Really tried to push the issue, perhaps somewhat literally, in the hairpin there. So we're right on board with Caruana in that Kimura Performance car on the back of this 3-car train. And well, Bradbury, has been the sort of unsung hero in all of this, because his defense has kept all of these cars behind through thick and thin, from when there were just 2 cars behind him, from when there were about 7. Yeah,
I think Bradbury is genuinely looking for his first points. Where did he start in this race, by the way? Because I'm pretty sure after issues in the first race, he's starting right 16. So he's gone plus 11 in this race. Super effort for Bradbury to get not only inside the top 10, but to get a 5th place. This, again, I was literally saying between the races, this is where we expect Bradbury to run. He is a fast driver in cars like this. He should be inside the top 5 on a consistent basis, and it only takes one result to start that kind of confidence, start that swing, start that momentum with the results. And sim racing and motorsport's big momentum game.
Indeed it is. And well, Caruana, just look at how close he is to the back of the car ahead of him there. Lads is given no room to breathe here at the moment. As much as he would like to focus on trying to get past Bradbury, he just can't, because he has to try and pay more attention to his wing mirrors and make sure Caruana isn't going to send one down the inside or the outside at any of these corners. And all the while, Deegan Fairclough is closing in on these 3 as well. So he might be a factor here in the final few laps, should anything happen.
I've got to say, I was out a little bit wide as we were looking backwards there from Bradbury, seeing Ladd, Caruana just out a touch wide at Knickerbrook. It's something that you've got to be a bit careful with. The less grip out there, obviously, not the rubbered in racing line. We're on board with Deegan Fairclough, who's closing in. I've seen a couple of different lines coming through Druids, and Fairclough is one that will run the wider line, will run out a little bit further away from the apex to carry the speed off of the corner ever so slightly more. Now on top with Caruana watching this battle, and like I said, he's waiting for some potential drama to happen as a big defensive line is being taken by Bradbury. Lad's going to get frustrated with this, isn't he? Because he couldn't get past Jamie Fluke in the previous race and cannot get past Bradbury in this one.
It's the story of Josh Ladd just getting stuck behind drivers. That's what's happened here. But the thing is, the first one was more by choice. I would say, given that he gave his interview afterwards and just saying, yeah, I just kind of just chills in P2. This is a slightly different situation, given that he wants to score, he wants to try and recover the most points out of this race as possible. So, yeah, different situation indeed. And now Fairclough, like I said, closing in. He's actually bringing this Landis for the ride as well. So this might end up being a 5-car train for the final lap.
Yeah, I've got to say, Deslander's has done an amazing job just to literally grab hold of the slipstream from Deegan Fairclough just ever so slightly. He was almost outside of it, just caught up at the right time before Fairclough had got further away. There was no slipstream for him to grab. And that could give him an opportunity for better results in this, because as we head on to the final lap, Again, I'll say it before, this is almost guaranteed that there will be some form of drama, that this order that you're seeing now, Bradbury, Ladd, Caruana, Fairclough, Deslandis, this will probably not be the order that we see in just about 3 kilometers time.
Well, that's your bet. with how much of a brick wall that Bradbury is able to put up here at the moment, I'm not thinking things are likely to change. He's been so good on the defense so far. Whether or not Caruana can get past Ladd, though, is a different issue. And whether Fairclough and Deslandis get themselves involved is also another different issue as well. No opportunities this time in towards the hairpin, though. You got to nail the brakes and get your line through that regardless, though, because if you're slow off the corner, that's another opportunity for the driver behind you to use to try and get one over you in towards the Hislop chicane. 10 seconds left to go, though. McEwen is coming towards the end of his lap here. He's actually heading his way through it here at the moment. So the confirmation of the final lap, there we go. And oh, careful, McEwen with the connection, as we'll get ourselves the look at Luke McEwen as he heads his way out of Lodge Corner. It was a relaxing race for Luke McEwen. Started P2, comes across the line P1 here in the ROKiT F4 Esports Championship. Big instant. Fairclough's off. Deslandis too. Big instant there at the end of the race.
Oh, and there is drama between the two of those. Obviously, the squeeze off Deslandis getting into the rear end of Fairclough. Fairclough not happy, driving straight into Deslandis' car. I mean, if this was in real life, he'd be out of the car, slapping the helmet of the other car, thinking, what are you doing? Still grabs himself 9th place, by the way. Deslandis comes into the pit lane for unknown reasons. Just come across the line, good sir, and grab yourself the final points. But let's take another look at this. Watch Deslandis then. So you've got the defensive line being taken by Deegan Fairclough. Deslandis is basically just driving straight over the rear end of Deegan Fairclough. I did say that order was not going to be the same towards the line, and there was going to be drama. It's every single time you just get it down into Lodge, someone's going to go for it.
Maybe I should trust your judgment a little bit more, Lewis. That's why you're in that seat and I'm in this one. But yeah, that was. Well, I'll have to see what the stewards have to say about that one, especially with the slight contact, the slight reaction afterwards as well. It's not going to help. Of course, Matt Caruana was also involved in that one and got through on it. He was in the right place at the right time to try and get himself through on that instant. Doesn't take credit away, though, from Luke McEwen. He gets himself a race win here in the ROKiT British F4 Esports Championship. This is the base performance simulators round number 2 at Oulton Park. It has unfortunately drawn itself to a close here. Fantastic race for Luke McEwen. We didn't really talk about him over the course of that race, and that's when you know you've done such a good job. He wins by 2.6 seconds over Jamie Fluke. Then you've got Dion Gauda in P3 with a great podium finish for the Team Flotilla hybrid effort. We've got Morano Sarica in P4 with Ted Bradbury holding on to a very respectable P5 there for the YRDA Arden car. Josh Ladd finishes in P6 after a recovery drive from issues earlier on. Ethan Critchley in P7 with Ryan Mikulev in P8 with William McIntyre P9. Matt Caruana rounds out the top 10. Cycling back, we've got Ruben Stanislaus in P11 with Deegan Fairclough in P12. Stanley Deslandis P13. Those two guys had a huge amount of drama there at the very end. I don't think that's going to be the end of it, at least for this season. In terms of the drivers, a lap down or more, we've got Kyle Chase, Josh Poulain. We've got Peter Berryman with an instant here today and P16 outside of the point scoring positions for the Apex Racing team. Not ideal. Chris Owen, P17. Kian Gohill with another unfortunate race for him. It just seems like nothing really goes his way here at Oulton Park. James Armstrong, P19. Peo Pev as well, down in P20. Then we have Pete Harrod, Monica Ramos, and Mira Schmidt. Two drivers, again, with another unfortunate race here in race 2. Exactly the same as what happened for them in race number 1. Hopefully that those two can bounce back once we go to Knock Hill in 2 weeks' time. But there's your race winner then, the number 22 Apex Racing Academy car of Luke McEwen. And, well, we're just waiting for our drivers to get ourselves involved into the interview. And actually, Lewis, you are standing by with our race winner for race 2.
We do have Luke McEwen in the comments booth for the second time this season. Obviously, we did catch up a little bit after Donington Park. What a start of the season! A third, a fourth, and now a victory on the cards. I've got to say, that's got to be a big confidence booster for the next 4 races. The first little leg of this championship's done. Got a week off after this one. Like I say, you're going into that second part of the season with surely confidence being at an all-time high.
Yeah, I feel really good. The races have been, I think I'm really good in the races, but I need to work a bit on qualifying. I think that's where others have a bit of an edge over me, but I'm sure that's an easy thing to work on, and yeah, it's a good start.
Did you have any idea about the amount of drama that was happening behind? Because of course you broke away back, before even the 10-minute mark at the race, where you managed to get yourself into a comfortable spot for the race lead. Did you know exactly what was going on behind, or were you just focused on ticking off some nice, clean, tidy laps and not exceeding too much?
I had in my mirror a few glimpses. I could see like 2-3 wide into hairpin, and I was just thinking now's my chance to just get away, and I did that, and yeah, it worked out.
Now, battling for the championship, of course, both drivers, teams, etc. Over the season that we've got to go, I know normally people would ask, what's your favourite track coming up? But I want to ask, is there a circuit coming up that potentially you might be fearing a little bit when it comes to this championship, like how dramatic it might be, how much sometimes the result might be a little bit out of your control? Is there one of those rounds that you might be looking at, or are you still pretty confident over all of them?
I think Silverstone National is going to be a tough one in terms of a championship point of view, because with longer straights, not many corners, it's going to be a draft fest, and it's just going to be every man for themselves. So yeah.
Well, cheers, Luke. We'll let you go off and celebrate the victory, and I'm sure we'll be catching up with you potentially in a couple of weeks' time when we go to the next round at Not Kill. Super effort.
Cheers.
And now we'll be joined by Jamie Fluke once again, second consecutive interview. It means that the last 3 interviews that we've had in the championship, you've been a part of it to some degree. Another podium to have ticked off. Kept yourself a little bit clean there whilst literally all of the drama was happening around you. How do you do it when it's like that? Absolutely crazy out there.
Great question. I try not to put myself in positions where I'm going to be compromised too heavily either way, whether it's, if I'm going for a move, I always do it with at least some element of caution with it. And if I'm defending, if someone's going to go really aggressive with it, then, I need to find a way to bail out. So, but at the same time, you got to put yourself in a position to try and make things happen and put guys under pressure. And yeah, it's a tough balancing act, but I think on this one personally, yeah, I got it pretty much spot on.
Now, you said before in the last interview that you keep your eye on what's happening around you, especially towards your teammate. You got your leaderboard up and whatnot. Does your heart sink a little bit when you see the issues for Peter Berryman? Of course, not only focus on the team side of things, the champion, whatever, but a mate and was having a bit of a struggle across the evening. Does that make your heart sink a bit?
Yeah, it does. And as well, so most series that we've ever done, it's the drivers' championship that's sort of the priority, but in this one, it is the teams. So, if Pete has a bad race, then we're both having a bad race, and vice versa. So, yeah, I could hear through the comms what was happening, and it didn't sound good. I'll review it personally afterwards before I make any comment, but it didn't sound like a lot of fun back there. And yeah, hopefully, as a team, we'll rebound for the next round.
Does that kind of put extra pressure on the next qualifying session for you, knowing how feisty it can be in the mid-pack? I know you've obviously risen through it once at Donington Park, but you don't really want to be doing that more than once in a season.
True, but at the same time, you sort of got to trust your preparation for this, and then just go in and hit the lap and just do what you can do, and try not to think too hard about it. So I wouldn't say that I had any pressure more than normal going into this, maybe a little bit, because truthfully, out of the 4 Apex guys, I'm the slowest of the 4. So yeah, there's a little bit of pressure on me to sort of step up and actually put together the best lap that I can. But I don't think too much about stuff like that.
Well, cheers to Jamie Fluke. 2 podiums here at Oulton Park. Absolutely loving life.
Cheers.
Now we'll catch with Dion Gowder, who will join us in the commentary booth. He'll run back over to the rig. That was a swift run. Nice wireless headset. Great round of racing there. Like I said, to float under the radar, have a battle with Jamie Fluke there in that in the final race. Talk us through the battle.
Yeah, with Jamie, he was really fast, and at that moment I was thinking there was a big gap behind us and it was just worth following and pushing along. So So yeah, I didn't want to risk anything, not do anything stupid. Obviously, we had a tough round at Donington, so just try to get as much points as possible for this race.
When you were heading into the second race, obviously you were starting from reverse grid pole. Talk us through the emotion and stuff on the grid. Yeah, was it going through your head that maybe this was the time for a race win? Were you kind of thinking that you were going to be holding a train up for the whole race? How do you kind of keep yourself calm in a scenario like that?
Yeah, the nerves were definitely high. Obviously, I wanted to win the race and wanted to lead, and I was a bit surprised with how the race went, to be honest. But yeah, I just focused on myself and drove the best I could, and yeah, ended up with a good result.
Now, you said there that you didn't have the greatest Donington Park, and that was generally across the Fordzilla team. There was a few struggles, particularly in that second race. How did you kind of reset yourself this one? Because you certainly looked a lot stronger today, a lot more comfortable today.
Yeah, definitely so much more comfortable with the car. A lot more preparation than what we did at Donington. Worked a bit harder with the team and Josh and McIntyre and to get a bit of a setup going. And yeah, we're still not there. We're still not 100%, but we're going to get there eventually. And yeah, just going to keep working hard.
Well, cheers, Dion. Enjoy the podium. Enjoy your evening. A super effort across the entire day.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
There we go, Connery. Podium sorted, round complete. And what a round it was.
Yeah, indeed it was. And, well, it gives us a little bit more knowledge now heading into our third round of competition, which will be up in Scotland. It will be at Knockhill, the racetrack on a mountain, basically, and very, very hard to access. It's potentially going to be a fantastic event because these cars tend to race better at circuits such as Knockhill, where it's those tight and twisty sections, and of course those opportunities, especially on the brakes in towards the final corner at Knockhill, is the one main thing that I'm thinking of as well. So it's going to be pretty exciting. I'm not sure what your thoughts are about Knockhill, Lewis. I don't think I've ever really asked you before.
No, I'm very touch and go with it. I mean, it's kind of one of those Marmite circuits. You either love it or you hate it. And genuinely, I flip flop every time I go there. I'm either like I'm in the mood for this track and I love it, and then I go there. I'm like, nope, I can't. I just cannot deal with it. I can't be having any of it. It is one of those circuits. Very, very difficult. Turn one, obviously, massively. Drop downhill through that first corner, through that first right hander. You got the chicane as well, and like you say, that final hairpin. It is a tricky second one. That doesn't look that difficult on a map, but when you drive it, it is something else.
Yeah, it is crazy to drive. So these drivers will definitely be putting a lot of preparation in for it, especially given that we have a 2-week break before we have our third race meeting at Knockhill. And well, knowing all that, we will have to wrap up here. Thank you, everyone, very much for joining us here on the ROKiT British S4 Esports Championship. This has been the second round, the second race meeting at Oulton Park. Thank you very much to Motorsport UK for organising this championship, and to our partners at ROKiT, at SimuCube, at Base Performance Simulators for giving their title sponsorship for this race at Oulton Park, to VRRC and to World Sim Racing for supporting this amazing championship. My name has been Connery Medic. I've been joined by the ever wonderful Lewis McGlade. We'll see you in 2 weeks' time at Knockhill.